Chapter 2019. At this time, Han Fei hadn't merged yet, because the golden arm was still in the body of white mist. Although the golden arm was completely under his control, he didn't know if the terrifying power would have any side effects, so Han Fei didn't merge with the golden arm immediately. And his state wouldn't affect the return of the sixth vine. The return of this vine seemed to be louder than before. Before the two intertwined, the whole starry sky was already shaking, and a huge amount of resources were gathering. Han Fei thought that if he merged with the vine in his origin sea, a lot of resources would probably be devoured. The demon purification pot was spinning, and the 5 vines on it were swaying and even growing. After about 100 minutes, the 6th vine finally returned. Swish, swish, swish. The moment the vine returned, it pierced into Han Fei's body of black mist and the body of white mist at the same time, and then directly appeared in Han Fei's origin sea. As soon as the demon purification pot entered the origin sea, the entire origin sea was boiling, and a huge amount of energy rose to the sky and poured into the vine. Although Han Fei was a bit distressed, the rise of the demon purification pot was equivalent to his rise, so he could eat as much as he wanted. If he couldn't, he could find more resources after he left the Imperial Palace. The demon purification pot seemed to know where Han Fei's main resources were, so it quickly came to the batch of resources that Han Fei reserved for him. That batch of resources, to put it bluntly, added up to nearly 3 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones. After he came out of the Grand Purity Palace, he replenished a lot of them. Han Fei thought that according to the previous devouring speed of the demon purification pot, it should be able to devour for a long time. However, to Han Fei's shock, nearly 1,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones shattered every second, which meant that they were swallowing billions of points of spiritual energy every second. In this way, the demon purification pot could probably devour 15 million ultra-quality spiritual stones a day. These resources would run out in about half a year. Han Fei was shocked. Half a year? He planned to let the demon purification pot swallow these resources for decades. Why was it only enough for half a year? Besides, the time in the origin sea was accelerated. Half a year here was less than 7 days in the outside world. So, his massive amount of resources could only last 7 days. Are you kidding me? Not even 50 breaths of time had passed. The small vine in the demon purification pot stretched out with a swoosh and plundered the million black yellow stones that he got from the skeleton jewelry. Han Fei said, "Hey, don't be so full. Let's eat slowly. Remember to leave some for me." Han Fei was really anxious this time, different from the ultra-quality spiritual stones. As far as top-grade spirit stones were concerned, he had many sources. Even if he used his own resources to exchange for them, he would be able to exchange for a lot of them. However, he had only obtained a little more than 1 million pieces of black yellow stone in this underground palace. If they were all swallowed by the demon purification pot, would he have been lonely after fighting for so long? About 5 minutes later, the golden arm disappeared, and the strength of Han Fei's white mist body dropped. So Han Fei performed Gemini as one. But at this moment, he could only wait. Within the origin sea, the demon purification pot was swallowing the mystic yellow stone, and Han Fei was playing with this jade slip, ready to read it. This jade slip appeared with the small vine. He didn't know if it contained any important information or cultivation methods. When Han Fei scanned it with his perception, he frowned, and as he read on, his face became more and more solemn. After a while, Han Fei's face was livid and his expression was extremely complicated. When he looked at the demon purification pot again, he sighed and let out a long breath. This jade slip was not a divine art or something like that. As he guessed, it was an important record. The record was about nothing else but the demon purification gourd. The content of the jade slip was witnessed from the first-person perspective of this emperor, namely Chu Hao. After reading the jade slip, Han Fei learned that Chu Hao had been an emperor for at least 2 million years. Because in this jade slip, it was written that 28 million years after he became an emperor, the gods roamed the Chaos Sea and found an ancient vine growing in the Chaos Eye in the depths of the Chaos Sea. The gods worked together to pull out the ancient vine, and the demon purification pot appeared. However, when the demon purification pot appeared, the chaos eye collapsed, as if the world collapsed and all Daos were overturned. Ominous things overflowed from the chaos eye, and darkness spread. The gods didn't care. After learning the great power of the demon purification pot, the civil war began. The war of the gods lasted only 100,000 years, and the people were plunged into misery and suffering. In the end, the demon purification pot was divided among the 9 gods, and each got a vine. However, darkness spread, and in the darkness, there were creatures crossing the darkness and descending to the sea realm. The ominous war was born. In the ominous land, strong masters dominated, and some gods were defeated and died in the sea realm. Since then, the ominous war officially began. After fighting for more than 600,000 years, the gods built the eternal thunder purgatory to suppress the ominous. However, the ominous accumulated for a long time and became more and more powerful. The gods discussed and combined the demon purification pot to resist. After fighting for 60,000 years, a traitor was born, and the war of the gods broke out. In the war of the gods fought in the darkness. After fighting for more than 3 months, many gods died and never came out of the darkness. Only the demon purification pot was thrown out of the darkness, and I happened to get this treasure. However, in a hurry, the Dharch ambushed me, and the demon purification pot was damaged, and I was about to die, so I had to escape with the broken artifact. In the name of the Void Temple, I sealed this place, built the Dharch Palace, and sealed the demon purification pot. I hope that there are heroes in the future who can reassemble the demon purification pot. Remember, although the darkness is there, the Thearch's heart is unpredictable. If the gods don't come out, the ominous will always come. When Han Fei finished reading this record, he didn't feel good. It turned out that the demon purification pot was a treasure that the gods searched for in the depths of the Chaos Sea. It was because of it that the so-called ominous came. It was because of it that the twilight of the gods broke out. Even after the gods died, because of it, the Dharch fought because of it. Han Fei didn't know where the Chaos Sea was, but it was very dangerous. The demon purification pot had a total of 9 vines, and this was only the 6th one, which meant that at least 3 more vines were in the so-called sea realm. Therefore, holding the demon purification gourd was basically asking for trouble, as long as others found out. At that time, countless Tharch would want to kill him and snatch the demon purification pot. According to the description on Chu Hao's Jade Slip, the preaching of the Void Temple here was just a cover. It could even be said that Chu Hao had purposely made this place the place of inheritance of the Void Temple in order to protect this place, or to protect the demon purification gourd from being discovered. However, Han Fei didn't know whether the Void Temple knew about the existence of the demon purification pot. This was really hard to say. After all, the Chaotic Sea was also the place of inheritance of the Void Temple. There was a way to become a disciple of the Void Temple here. Would anyone pay attention to the Imperial Palace here? Besides, the Imperial Palace had existed here for tens of thousands of years. If there were experts in the same realm who knew about this place, wouldn't they want to see the Imperial Palace? Han Fei was horrified. He had a feeling that there was an invisible hand behind all this. Of course, Han Fei was more willing to believe that Chu Hao had arranged everything. Since he dared to protect this place with the help of the Void Temple, if the Void Temple could get it, they should have gotten it long ago. How could the demon purification pot fall into his hands? In short, no matter what, now that the demon purification pot was his, he couldn't let others know. Once this matter was leaked, even if the Dharch knew, he would be in danger. Moreover, he had no choice but to be careful when dealing with someone at the venerable sovereign level. But the demon purification pot's target was the darkness, the ominous place, the place where the gods fell. Han Fei couldn't help taking a deep breath. Suddenly, he felt as if he was carrying the sky on his shoulders, and the pressure was so great that he almost suffocated. In the Origin Sea, The demon purification pot's demand for resources seemed to be extremely high. On the 132nd day, 1,000,000 mysterious yellow stones were swallowed up by the demon purification pot. After swallowing the mysterious yellow stones, it was not over. In another 182 days, the 3 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones that Han Fei specially prepared for the demon purification pot were swallowed up. Even then, the demon purification pot didn't stop. In another 200 days, the resources that Han Fei earned in the Imperial Palace were almost consumed up. Han Fei was about to cry. If this went on, he would have to live on his savings. His origin sea was built up with a massive amount of resources. The spiritual spring water, which was originally rushing like a river, had dried up half at this moment. On the 680th day, more than 21 days had passed in the outside world. The spiritual spring water in Han Fei's origin sea had completely dried up, and Little Black and Little White had no place to swim now. And the chaotic gas in Han Fei's origin sea had been swallowed more than 10,000 strands. The various mines, earth veins, and spiritual springs buried underground were almost drained, and the origin sea had already produced mist. This was clearly weakening Han Fei. It could be said that if the demon purification pot didn't stop, Han Fei's origin sea would be emptied. If the amount of resources in his origin sea was 100 portions before, now there was less than a quarter left at most. How many resources had Han Fei harvested since robbing in the chaotic sea? Today, nearly 80% of them were gone, and his heart was almost numb. But on this day, the demon purification pot finally stopped spinning. But immediately afterward, 6 small vines took root in Han Fei's origin sea, and the small vines grew more and more, finally forming a vine area. And where the demon purification pot was, the earth veins were transforming. Han Fei felt that the land of the origin sea had become extremely fertile and natural. And in the origin sea, a sky appeared, which refreshed Han Fei. Although he didn't know what it meant, wasn't it only the heaven-opening state could create a sky? When Han Fei scanned with his perception, he was immediately disappointed. It turned out to be just a kind of environment shaping, not a real sky. The origin sea still had limits. Puff! While Han Fei was disappointed, he found that countless cracks appeared on the earth veins of the origin sea. Then 2 small vines directly plunged into his body. Suddenly, the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body began to run in 2 completely different ways. At that moment, Han Fei seemed to realize something. His spiritual heritage was about to be unveiled. Chapter 2020. After waiting for almost a year and a half, the demon purification pot was finally full. Fortunately, he had so many resources for the demon purification pot to absorb. If it were a sea expansion realm king, it would take him thousands of years to save so many resources. In addition to feeling that his spiritual heritage was about to be revealed, Han Fei also saw that the 3rd fruit on the 5th small vine was also ripening at this moment. However, Han Fei didn't have time to be overjoyed because there were now 2 kinds of spiritual heritage running in his body. Judging from Han Fei's inner vision, the circulation of these 2 parts of the spiritual heritage seemed to coexist in a situation where one was real and the other was virtual. Of the 2 kinds of spiritual heritage, one was turquoise, and some parts looked as pure as glass, which looked normal. However, the part of this spiritual heritage that was as pure as glass was relatively small, only about 1/10 of it. Most of them were like opaque turquoise with a hint of whiteness in them. And the other kind of spiritual heritage was black all over, and some parts were blood red, and the blood red part was relatively small. It was probably only 1/10 of it. At present, in these 2 kinds of spiritual heritage, there was power rushing here and there, and endless spiritual energy was constantly scouring every part. Being scoured by this power, Han Fei subconsciously activated the void fishing art. He activated the technique and tried to absorb spiritual energy and other powers to scour them together. It felt like his nose was blocked, and he kept inhaling, trying to get through the air pressure. More importantly, the 2 spiritual heritage were in the same situation. Han Fei didn't even need to look at his information to know that there must be something wrong with these two spiritual heritage. In the past, although he couldn't see, he didn't feel so blocked even though he couldn't see. Now, he could see them, but he found that they were blocked everywhere. Only 1/10 of them were unblocked, and the other 90% were congested. Han Fei was speechless. This problem didn't occur when he was cultivating before. Why was there a problem everywhere now? Although he could still complete a circulatory cycle, he felt that it might take him an hour to complete a circulatory cycle in such a congested situation. Although he could have completed a circulatory cycle in one breath's time. Only then did Han Fei realize that he had always thought that the efficiency of his cultivation technique was very high. But as soon as the technique was activated, he would be burned by heavenly fire. But in reality, he had been cultivating at an extremely slow speed all this while. Understanding this, Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed like he had one more thing to do in the future, and that was to open up his two spiritual veins. Han Fei found it hard to imagine that his spiritual heritage was already in the category of heavenly heritage before it was opened. What would it be like after his two spiritual heritage were opened? Such a situation lasted for 3 days. Thanks to the efforts of the demon purification pot and Han Fei himself, the two spiritual veins had been opened by about 10% each. About 20% of them were opened in total, but they were still far from being fully opened. At this moment, the demon purification pot had retracted the vines and returned to its normal form. Han Fei finally regained his freedom. Looking at the misty origin sea, Han Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How long would it take for him to get it back? However, this thought only appeared for a very short time, because Han Fei's eyes had already looked at his personal information. Owner, Han Fei, level greater than 96. Sea expansion, 10,000 tribe tree in the sea, 980006. Chaotic energy, 43495. Spiritual power, 810026. Perception range greater than 850,000 kilometers. Strength greater than 301,560 waves. First spiritual heritage, primordial spiritual heritage. Second spiritual heritage of eternal darkness. First spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish. Level 89. Second spiritual beast, emperor sparrow. Level 91. Main art, time fishing. Level 8 of. Void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. Han Fei didn't pay attention to the data immediately because the origin sea was in a mess now. It would be great if his power didn't drop. On the other hand, the two great spiritual veins had finally revealed their true names. Primordial spiritual heritage. Primordial spiritual heritage? Han Fei focused on the specific information of the two spiritual heritage. As a result, Han Fei's face immediately changed when he saw it. The primordial spiritual heritage, the beginning of chaos, the creation of veins, the beginning of life, one of the most mysterious bloodlines in history, ranked 800th on the 10,000 heritage divine list. With this spiritual heritage, one's strength would pour out, which was rare in the world. The speed of cultivation could be ranked at the top of the tens of thousands of clans in the sea. The primordial spiritual heritage, the beginning of nothingness, the end of death, one of the most mysterious bloodlines in history, ranked 3,000th on the 10,000 heritage divine list. With this spiritual heritage, one's strength would pour out, which was rare in the world. The speed of cultivation could be ranked at the top of the tens of thousands of clans in the sea. Han Fei frowned. Did he see it wrong? Were the origins of these two spirit veins so terrifying? One was ranked 3,000th, and the other was ranked 800th on the 10,000 heritage divine list. Didn't it mean that he was destined to be one of the fastest cultivators in the chaotic sea from the moment he was born? Unfortunately, he had always thought that it was the result of his hard work. When he cultivated the indestructible body, he felt that although his meridians hurt, they couldn't burst, so he thought that it was because his physique was strong enough. It turned out that it was all because his spiritual heritage was too high, very high. So even if he only had less than 1/10 of his spiritual heritage before, he could cultivate to this level in such a short time. Han Fei was speechless. The spiritual heritage was so good that he didn't know what to say. Han Fei could only tell himself that his spiritual heritage hadn't been opened yet, so his ranking was definitely not as high as the Great Path. But when his spiritual heritage was opened in the future, at least it wouldn't be difficult to become an immortal, right? Han Fei comforted himself and looked at the third divine pill that appeared on the demon purification pot. This pill was called the Art of Infinite Transformation. It comprehended the great path of heaven, felt the impermanence of everything, and grasped the infinite changes, transforming into thousands of things in the world. To put it bluntly, this was stronger than the 72 transformations. He used to think how difficult it was for a human to transform into a fish and a fish to transform into a human. As a matter of fact, countless generations of people had devoted themselves to research in order to figure out this Tao. And this art of infinite transformation was even more powerful. He could transform into any creature he saw. This seemed to only play a supporting role. But if he added the Gemini divine technique, it could be said that his ability to escape had reached a terrifying level. Even Han Fei didn't know how to deal with it. Unless there was a magical pupil technique that was countless times more powerful than the fiery eyes, it might not be able to detect him. Besides, he could commit crimes in stealth and transform into other people without being noticed, so he had to learn this technique first. If he had learned this technique before, then when he was in the insect-tide forest, how could those low-level insects find him when he turned into a random insect? Comprehending the art of infinite transformation should be similar to the law of heaven and earth, right? If he took the divine pill, he should be able to master it soon. About 20 days had passed in the outside world. On the top of the bronze tree, the blue light ball broke with a pop. As soon as Han Fei appeared, he scanned with his perception and found that 4 of the blue light balls around him were missing. Besides, Han Fei keenly discovered that 2 of the blue light balls had changed positions. Although Han Fei didn't know if the disappeared light ball represented the death of a person. However, the light ball that had changed its position meant that 2 people had chosen to continue exploring after obtaining a certain treasure. The 2 positions changed. One was Bai Yu, and the other was Huang Jia. But anyway, no one had come out yet. Looking at the bronze tree, Xiao Qian's heart skipped a beat. He wondered if this bronze tree was the same place as the 5 graves ground. Han Fei couldn't help but take out the nautical panorama and cast the Gemini divine technique. With a thought from Han Fei, the nautical panorama began to rotate. However, to Han Fei's surprise, the nautical panorama pointed to the tree, which meant that some of the kings who participated in the treasure hunt had died, not the kings who died in the 5 graves land. Han Fei couldn't help frowning slightly. Forget it, I'm seriously short of resources now. I'm not interested in this tree full of treasures. Anyway, there was still a long time before the Imperial Palace opened, and he had plenty of time to continue to hunt for treasures. However, before that, he needed to get as many resources as possible back. Han Fei broke the void with a finger, and the black mist body drilled in and came directly to a vast sea. There was no land here, but the bottom of the sea was full of beaches, coral reefs, and holes full of seaweed. There were also various remains of crab shells and the like. In addition to these, there was a large number of deep sea areas. Obviously, this was the origin sea of the Squid Girl of the Behemoth clan. From the looks of it now, he should be thoroughly dead. The origin sea of the Squid Girl was not small, more than 7,000 miles long and wide, and the color of the mist was relatively light. The origin sea was rich in resources, which showed that she was not weak. Although she had been hiding her strength, she died on this bronze tree before she could show it. Without Han Fei's order, the demon purification pot had already come out to work. Chapter 2021. In the Squid Girl's origin sea, the demon purification pot swallowed more than 6,000 strands of chaotic energy, which was really a lot. And the ultra-quality spiritual stones Han Fei found, plus various resources, added up to about 1 billion. This number couldn't be said to be small. After all, a king was worth so many resources. But compared to himself, these resources weren't considered much. Compared with the part of his origin sea that was swallowed by the demon purification pot, the harvest of the squid girl was not even enough to make up for 1/10 of his loss. However, Han Fei was not greedy. If one was not enough, there was still a second one. Just now, for blue light balls disappeared. Half an hour later, when Han Fei completely plundered the squid girl's origin sea, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, he finally made up for it. As the nautical panorama rotated again, the target was still the bronze tree. It seemed that someone had died. When Han Fei broke the void again and went in with his black mist body, he found some ownerless souls here. After searching for a while, Han Fei found the map of the divine palace of the refining god Heaven, only to know that Su Lian had died. Alas, Han Fei sighed slightly. He had helped Su Lian several times, but Su Lian still died in the end. It could only be said that the 13 outer heavens were relatively in decline, and it was not without reason. If Su Lian died, the refining soul heaven would be leaderless. Han Fei didn't know if Su Lian left any backup methods before he came here. Han Fei collected the ownerless souls here and collected about 800 million worth of resources, which was quite a lot. After all, he had only been in the Imperial Palace for 3 years. How many resources could he consume? Therefore, these kings probably had their own considerations when they came here, such as how many resources they brought. The demon purification pot collected more than 5,600 strands of chaotic energy. Fortunately, the 10,000 strands of chaotic energy that were swallowed in his origin sea were finally made up for. But a lot of other resources were still missing. When Han Fei tried to find the origin sea for the 3rd time with a nautical panorama, although he still found it, it was not on the bronze tree, but in the void outside the bronze tree. When Han Fei found this void, the 9-poisoned treasure silkworm in the depths of his divine soul moved, which meant that there was a residual poison here. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Huang Jie was dead? When Han Fei entered the 3rd origin sea, he was shocked to find that it was an ocean. Then he sensed his surroundings. This could not possibly be Huang Jie's origin sea. Otherwise, there would be thousands of poisons everywhere. Since it wasn't Huang Jie's origin sea, it meant that Huang Jie had fought with this person. Furthermore, Huang Jie had won, and this person had died. This person's origin sea was more than 26,000 kilometers wide. This was the largest origin sea he had seen apart from Wan Qingling. Moreover, this person also knew how to arrange the origin sea. The color of the mist was very light, clearly grasping some tricks. The moment the demon purification gourd appeared, it did not devour the chaotic aura immediately. Instead, it extended a small vine towards a large seaweed at the bottom of the sea. Han Fei frowned and immediately found something wrong. A beam of golden light leaped over, and the ultimate blade left his hand in an instant, slashing at the big algae. Puff, puff, puff. Seeing that the seaweed was cut up, Han Fei fused with little black and little white. He keenly noticed that a wisp of a soul was drilling into the earth vein. Han Fei immediately blocked the earth vein with the void lines. After finding this person's position, the ultimate blade went up and poked him. In just 2 seconds, this person's remnant soul was riddled with holes, and he finally revealed his true appearance. When Han Fei took a closer look, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Oh, it's you." Han Fei couldn't help but be amused. This person was none other than Zhou Bai of the Seabed Human Clan, rumored to be one of the top 10 powerhouses on the Sea Pioneer list. Now it seemed that the top 10 powerhouses didn't agree to old Huang Jie's request. Either this Zhou Bai was already seriously injured when he came out, and old Huang Jie took advantage of him, or old Huang Jie's strength was already very strong, beyond the scope of Zhou Bai's ability. Han Fei was more inclined to the second possibility. Although old Huang Jie looked like a dying man, in fact, the great poison he controlled might be able to kill someone at the heaven-opening realm. Han Fei was not surprised that Zhou Bai was defeated by Huang Jie. Instead, he took advantage of him. Zhou Bai was shocked. "Han Fei, how did you enter my origin sea?" Han Fei grinned and said, "You asked too many questions. Do you think I'll tell you?" Zhou Bai was terrified, but there was nothing he could do. He was being ravaged by the great poison. Otherwise, how could he exist in the form of a soul? At this time, no matter what, he had to restore his physical state. However, just as Zhou Bai was about to use the chaos qi to fuse with the surrounding energy, he discovered that the chaos qi was no longer under his control. He saw a gorge swallowing the sky and the earth. Han Fei grinned. What a pity. You can only blame your bad luck for running into me. With that, Han Fei issued an order in his heart, and the ultimate blade began to strangle crazily. Zhou Bai didn't even have a chance to dodge before his soul was pierced. To make sure that nothing went wrong, Han Fei searched with the void lines to make sure that Zhou Bai was dead, and then began to search for resources. Han Fei curled his lips. He thought that a powerhouse of Zhou Bai's level would have more resources. But after searching, he realized that he was overthinking. Since Zhou Bai had figured out the layout of the Origin Sea, a large number of resources must be arranged in the Origin Sea. The available resources were about the same as those he got from Wan Qingling, only 500 million. Of course, the excavation work of the Origin Sea was relatively more troublesome. However, Han Fei was short of resources now. No matter how difficult it was to excavate the Origin Sea, he had to do it. There were at least billions of resources in the Origin Sea. Wouldn't it be a big loss if he didn't excavate them? He dug for more than 6 hours. Han Fei continuously excavated resources from Zhou Bai's Origin Sea, reaching 2 billion. And when Han Fei dug to an underwater volcanic mountain, he found a demon essence core bead, which seemed to be the thing hanging on the bronze tree before. Zhou Bai's first target was this thing. He didn't expect that Zhou Bai didn't completely use this thing, but left it in the Origin Sea. Named Demon Emperor Naiden Introduction, an Emperor Naiden obtained by killing a humanoid Emperor Sea Demon. Its energy can be absorbed to enhance the soul, enhance strength, comprehend the Great Way, and inherit the Demon Emperor's great technique. Level, Emperor, Quality, Ultra Quality, contains celestial spiritual energy greater than 392 wisps. Effect, refining, and absorbing, it can obtain the inheritance, enhance the soul, comprehend the Great Way, and gain strength. Han Fei curled his lips slightly. This thing was good, but in fact it was of limited use to him. For one thing, he didn't actually need the inheritance of this thing, because it was not suitable for him. And among the people he knew, only Xia Xiaochan was suitable for it. But Xia Xiaochan didn't necessarily need it, because Xia Xiaochan's future path might not be worse than this Demon Emperor's. Looking at its Great Way, it could only serve as a learning tool at most. Xia Xiaochan definitely wouldn't accept the inheritance of this Demon Emperor. Therefore, Han Fei threw it into the Origin Sea. When Xia Xiaochan appeared, he would give it to her. In addition to the Demon Emperor Naiden, Han Fei obtained about 2.5 billion resources in total. The Demon Purification Pot absorbed 8,000 wisps of chaotic energy, so the amount of chaotic energy Han Fei had increased to 62,396 wisps. Unfortunately, the 3 chances of the Navigator had been used up today, which made up for the resources swallowed by the Demon Purification Pot. Fortunately, many kings died here. Otherwise, if he were to rob these resources, he didn't know how many places he would have to rob to get so many. Han Fei glanced at the bronze divine tree and saw that no one had come out. Although there were dazzling treasures hanging on the tree, he was not in a hurry to grab more treasures. Originally, in the Imperial Palace, Han Fei thought he had no chance to enter the Origin Sea, but it seemed to be different here. No rules could affect this place, not even perception. Therefore, Han Fei's black fog immediately entered his Origin Sea again and quickly replaced a large amount of waste resources with the more than 4 billion resources he looted. The essence of the earth veins he obtained before was guided to the entire Origin Sea by Han Fei. Because he got a large number of marine resources from Zhou Bai and the Squid Girl, Han Fei directly constructed the terrain within 50,000 kilometers to 60,000 kilometers into the sea. In this way, these resources would have a place to be stored. After almost an hour, the mist in Han Fei's Origin Sea finally dissipated by more than half, and the distribution of resources in the Origin Sea finally returned to about 40% of what it used to be. Although Han Fei still had no extra resources to use, there were still a lot of resources hanging on the bronze divine tree. Han Fei waited until the next day. One reason was to wait for the ability of the navigator to be reset, and the other reason was to continue to look for the origin sea of other kings that died. The other reason was to find treasures that were more suitable for him on the bronze divine tree. Although there were a lot of rare treasures on the tree, he couldn't be blinded by them. Of course, he had to find resources, but he also had to find a way out. Chapter 2022. Han Fei was used to seeing treasures and resources. In the past, a high-quality pearl was a treasure, but now, hundreds of millions of yuan was not enough. Han Fei needed resources, but he also knew that the greatest opportunity was the way out. So after reconsolidating the origin sea, Han Fei looked around. Above this void, stars were twinkling in the distance, and there was even a red moon in the sky. According to normal thinking, Han Fei could naturally think that the red moon might be the exit. Therefore, after a preliminary judgment, Han Fei immediately pointed to the exit with the nautical panorama. Sure enough, the nautical panorama pointed to the red moon in the sky without hesitation. Han Fei couldn't help but grin. The exit had been found, so he could continue to look for resources without worry. At this moment, the nautical panorama still had 2 chances to point. Han Fei let the nautical panorama continue to look for the origin sea of the remaining king. However, this time, to Han Fei's surprise, there was no origin sea. Wait, Han Fei couldn't help frowning. There were 4 blue light balls missing, but there were only 3 origin sea. This meant that one person had not died, and he was not here, so he must have left the bronze tree. In other words, one person had left the red moon. Han Fei's first thought was that Baiyu had left, because the blue light ball where Baiyu had disappeared. Maybe he had gone to compete for another target. Or maybe he had gone out. As Baiyu said, there was no shortage of treasures in the martial emperor city. Compared with Huang Jie, he was more likely to go out. Of course, it could also be someone else, but Han Fei was more inclined to Baiyu. However, these were all his guesses. To be honest, Han Fei doubted that there was a person who could resist the temptation of the bronze tree, because he couldn't resist the temptation of the bronze tree. Since the nautical panorama couldn't point, Han Fei didn't bother to look for it. He was not worried that the person who left would go through the bronze door before him. If it was so easy to enter the Void Temple, he wouldn't have to go through the test again and again. Han Fei said in his heart, "Point to the most suitable resources for the expansion of my origin sea." This time, to Han Fei's surprise, the nautical panorama pointed to the east and then to the west. In the end, Han Fei found that there were dozens of directions that the navigator pointed to. Han Fei was confused. Which one should I choose? While he was hesitating, he heard the old turtle say, "Why don't we choose the mystic yellow soil?" Han Fei was surprised. Black yellow soil? The mysterious yellow soil that can make the origin sea more natural and gentle? The old turtle, that's right. Look at the yellow brick that looks like a brick 300 miles above you. That's it. Han Fei raised his eyelids. Isn't that a brick? The old turtle said, "Trust me, I am someone who has obtained black yellow soil." Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Don't worry, we can do it one by one." But old Yuan, do you know anything about black yellow soil here? Is there anything more powerful? Let's make a mark first and take them one by one later. The old turtle pondered for a moment. I know quite a few, but if you want to take them one by one, why don't you uproot the whole tree? Didn't they say that someone had pulled it out before? F***CK. Han Fei had completely forgotten about it. Why didn't he think of pulling it out? It was because this bronze tree was too big, hundreds of thousands of miles high. It was really too big. Even if he pulled it out, he had no place to put it. Therefore, he felt that such a big tree couldn't be pulled out. However, who said that such a big tree couldn't be pulled out? Even if he couldn't pull it out, he could cut it open. Seeing this, Han Fei decided that since there was no one around, he might as well try to pull it out first. What if this tree was pulled out and the treasure fell? Then wouldn't he be rich? Old Han and his mother had done this before. Look, it was probably the 2 of them who got the demon purification pot out, right? Since someone had succeeded, Han Fei immediately rushed to the bottom of the bronze tree. In Han Fei's perception, the bronze tree was rooted in the void. Although he didn't know how it was rooted, it didn't stop Han Fei from trying to cut the void. Therefore, without hesitation, Han Fei activated the divine killing intent and slashed at the root of the bronze tree. Han Fei's purpose was clear. That was to break the void. The divine killing intent cut a huge crack in the void with terrifying power. But a strange thing happened. The power of the divine killing intent gradually disappeared in the void. But the bronze tree was fine, and Han Fei didn't even see its roots. It seemed that the place where the bronze tree was rooted shouldn't be the void of this world. Han Fei didn't find the roots of the bronze tree, so his strongest move didn't work. He immediately thought of the simplest and most common move, which was to cut the tree. Just like when he cut the 10,000-year-old big red trunk, he could cut the bronze tree into dozens of pieces, and the origin sea should be able to hold it. The infinity water turned into an endless huge wheel and slashed at the bronze tree. Hum, 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 clang, 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 crack, crack, crack. Han Fei really admired the hardness of the bronze tree. The infinity water cut it so violently, but the bronze tree was not damaged at all. On the contrary, the wheel formed by the infinity water collapsed and was full of cracks. Just when Han Fei felt that it was impossible to cut the tree, he decided to take it one by one. A layer of light blue air waves burst out of the bronze tree. This terrifying wave instantly collapsed the infinity water and sent Han Fei and the infinity water flying hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Han Fei felt as if he had been run over by a giant wheel. He was sore all over and felt that his bones were about to be broken. At that moment, when Han Fei was about to rush back, a wave of air swept over, shaking him back tens of thousands of kilometers. And at this time, perhaps because Han Fei was far enough away from the bronze tree, Han Fei could see the true appearance of the bronze tree. Han Fei was surprised to find that it was not the bronze tree at all. It was clearly a large, complex network of intertwined meridians, like the meridians all over the human body. However, before Han Fei could take another look, he saw the blue light curtain in front of him recede, and then Han Fei found himself exiting the starry sky and appearing on the ground under the starry sky. The bronze tree had disappeared without a trace. F*CK. Don't. Han Fei was shocked. What the F*CK is going on? I just cut the tree twice. How did it hit me out of the starry sky? The old turtle was also dumbfounded and shut up, thinking that Han Fei must be furious. Sure enough, Han Fei roared, "Old Yuan, this is the umpteenth rotten idea you have come up with. If I F*King take the treasures one by one, wouldn't it be better for me? Huh, such a large piece of black-yellow soil is gone. Shouldn't you let me fight for the treasures first?" Feeling Han Fei's anger, the old turtle couldn't help shivering. Well, it's just a suggestion. After all, someone has succeeded before. Han Fei said angrily, "Didn't I fail? Now, it's a tree full of treasures. A tree full of treasures." Han Fei felt that his heart was trembling and dripping blood. He had already planned to take the treasures one by one. How many would he get? The old turtle said, "In fact, I think that although there are many treasures on this bronze divine tree, not one person can take them without limit. Otherwise, once he is strong enough, he can take all the treasures. The Supreme Emperor will definitely set restrictions in this regard." Han Fei scoffed. T. The Supreme Emperor is obviously looking for an heir. There's so many treasures. If he doesn't give them to his heir, who will he give them to? Is he going to bless all living beings? Do you think the Supreme Emperor is stupid? The old turtle was a little guilty. It seemed that his argument was not convincing at all. But the old turtle immediately said, "Some of them survived. When you go out, look for them one by one. Let's just snatch the resources they got." Han Fei grabbed the nautical panorama. "No way. I have to find a way to go in again." The nautical panorama immediately turned, and Han Fei followed the pointer and broke through the void at the fastest speed. Soon, he landed in a place that looked like an ancient jungle. Han Fei tried to use his perception to investigate, only to find that it was gone. This made Han Fei speechless. Where should he go in this dense jungle? Han Fei had no choice but to use the nautical panorama again. Golden light flashed, and after about 10 minutes, Han Fei came to the bottom of a giant tree. But the moment Han Fei saw this giant tree, he couldn't help but wonder why it looked so much like the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. At this moment, Han Fei felt that there was an extremely slight vibration in the tree. It seemed that the power of the battle was transmitted through the tree. After a moment, Han Fei saw that on this giant ancient tree, there were many venerables who were fighting for a kind of tender yellow fruit wrapped in a thin gauze. Han Fei looked at the fruit in his hand, and information appeared in his eyes. Name Cloud Dream Fruit. Introduction. The fruit that grows on the Cloud Dream Divine Tree can improve the power of the soul, strengthen the bloodline, and have a chance of enlightenment. The best one can get the Cloud Dream Divine Technique. This fruit can be divided into 7 grades according to the number of leaves. The more leaves, the stronger the effect. The higher the position of this fruit, the better the effect. But this fruit is often guarded by exotic beasts, so it must be picked carefully. Level, venerable, quality, ultra quality, contains chaotic gas, 7 points, effect. It can improve the power of the soul, strengthen the bloodline, and enlighten. Chapter 2023. The Cloud Dream Fruit in Han Fei's hand was only wrapped with 2 leaves. Obviously, it wasn't of a high level. Such a Cloud Dream Fruit didn't mean much to him. Chomp! Han Fei took a big bite casually and swallowed it as if it were an ordinary fruit. So, the nautical panorama should be pointing to the way out of this place. Only by leaving this ancient forest could he have a chance to find the bronze tree again. A moment later, when Han Fei saw a human demi-king fighting a demi-king, he knew that he had probably come to a place explored by demi-kings. This place was indeed very beneficial to half-step kings. The higher the grade of the Cloud Dream Fruit, the more primal chaos chi it contained, and the more spiritual strength it could increase. It would also strengthen one's bloodline, and it would also allow one to comprehend Daos. This was a shortcut to improve their comprehensive strength. Anyone who survived here and didn't die would be much stronger than ordinary demi-kings. If they left this palace in the future, they would be much stronger than ordinary demi-kings. And the only thing that could really help a demi-king transcend the tribulation and become a demi-king was the Cloud Dream Fruit of the highest level. Treasures of that level were definitely rare and couldn't be found in large quantities. Therefore, Han Fei guessed that this place might be just one of the many trial sites for demi-kings. As for the degree of danger, it was only SOSO. Han Fei shouldn't have been beaten to this place, but since he was here, it meant that he could pick a few of the highest Cloud Dream Fruits. He just needed to climb all the way to the tree. This difficulty couldn't stop Han Fei. At the highest point of the Cloud Dream Divine Tree, the trunk was naturally thinner and thinner. However, this place had become an ocean of demonic plants. As many as 1,000 kinds of weird demonic plants were attacking each other. At the highest point of the Cloud Dream Divine Technique, as many as 11 people were fighting each other. Among these people, except for a fatty who couldn't control demonic plants, everyone else could. Who else could this fatty be, if not Luren Quang? Who? Luren Quang was eating everything. For demi-kings were besieging him crazily. Luren Quang roared, "Xiaobai, we can't go on like this. Why don't we use the things that Fei left behind?" Luo Xiaobai said, "Don't be hasty. Those people are not very strong. The bad thing is that they are all from 100 Flowers Palace and are good at controlling demonic plants. Void Vine, do you have a way to take them away?" The Void Vine said in a sobbing tone, "Masters, I'm only a peak stage venerable one. Didn't the human king leave you some life-saving means? Use it." Luo Xiaobai said, "It's not time yet. If we use our trump card now, what will we use in the future?" Luren Quang said, "Fine, I can kill one of them instantly with my full strength and force another one to come. Void Vine, get ready to snatch the dreamy cloud fruit at any time." Void Vine understood. An orange-red light burst out of Lu Ren Quang's body, and a weird black box appeared with a sea-quelling bizarre treasure in his hand. Devouring demonic blade, fight, bang. Waves of air surged around Lu Ren Quang, and with a swish, he cut the 5-kilometer-long vine into pieces. The 4 half-kings of the Flowers Palace saw this. Someone immediately shouted, "Restrain him." When the 4 of them exerted their strength at the same time, Lurin Quang grinned. Deep blue fall. The void around one of the half-kings suddenly collapsed, and a terrifying suction force came from the void. The half-king was shocked and immediately shouted, "Give me a hand." The remaining half-kings of the Flowers Palace naturally went to rescue him. At this moment, the long knife in Lurin Quang's hand turned into a bolt of lightning and swept across the sky. One of them was triggered, his body was torn apart, and his essence blood was sucked out. Appalled, the half-king activated his secret method, and the essence blood that flew out turned into burning fire thorns that charged at Lurin Quang. But because of that person's mistake, there was a huge claw grabbing onto that half-North king. That person coughed up a mouthful of blood, and the huge claw unleashed a terrifying power that directly pulled that half-North king into the void. Then the void closed. At this point, Lurin Quang's outburst hadn't ended yet. He held the knife with both hands, his body withstood the overwhelming fire thorns, and he rushed forward. At this time, the pure mystic body reflected his powerful physique, and the so-called powerful attacks of these half-kings couldn't shake Lurin Quang at all. The longer Lurin Quang accumulated his strength, the brighter the long knife in his hand became. Seeing the overwhelming vines coming at him, with all kinds of strange poisons and enigmatic barriers in front of him, Lurin Quang knew that he couldn't break through. He slashed down, but it was hard to say whether he could kill them or not. Not good. Dodge. The guy who was targeted by Lurin Quang turned pale. At this moment, the other person threw out a jade slip. The phantom of a king appeared. As soon as the king appeared, he quickly understood the situation of the battle, and a black demonic vine, like a divine spear, pierced directly at Lurin Quang. Shoot! Lurin Quang knew that he couldn't resist it, and a jade slip appeared in his hand. Do you think only you have a king strike? I don't have it. Gotcha. However, the jade slip was broken. In that second, a golden light flashed, and Han Fei appeared. Han Fei grabbed the vine spear and shattered the void with a backhand slap, shattering the shadow of Hua Qianyue, the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, effortlessly. Lurin Quang shouted, "Did you see that? You bastard, the king of the 100 Flowers Palace, dare to fight against my brother? Believe it or not, I can even slap your king to death. If you know what's good for you, give up the Cloud Dream fruit." A woman on the opposite side shouted, "Humph. It's just a projection. I've already launched the King's Strike. Let's see how many King's Strikes the 3 of you can use." Lurin Quang couldn't help looking at Han Fei. "Fei, can you still fight? Let's mess with them a little more and kill 2 more along the way." Bam! 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 However, the half-kings only felt a terrifying pressure coming, and the vines, fog, poisonous gas, and enigmatic barriers all collapsed. Under Han Fei's pressure, the remaining 7 half-kings were all knocked down. Someone from the 100 Flowers Palace shouted, "Not good. Demon Han's phantom still has power. Hurry up and use the King's Strike." Swish, 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 3 jade slips collapsed, and 3 kings' phantoms emerged. Lurin Quang and the other 2 who were about to take the opportunity to rush overheardly stopped. The 3 of them immediately retreated behind Han Fei, and Luo Xiaobai also held a jade slip with a cold face. She estimated that Han Fei didn't use up the power of this strike, but if the opponent released 3 king strikes in a row, Han Fei might not be able to resist them. But then, as soon as the 3 king strikes appeared, Han Fei waved his hand. No one knew how Han Fei did it, but the 3 phantoms collapsed in an instant. They didn't even have the time to attack. Lurin Quang and Luo Xiaobai looked at each other. The power of Han Fei's strike hadn't been consumed yet. Lurin Quang immediately said regretfully, "I didn't know Han Fei's strike could be so strong. If I had known it was so strong, I wouldn't have thrown it out." The 7 people of the 100 Flowers Palace were also dumbfounded. Is Demon Han so strong? He just waved his hand casually, and the king's strike collapsed? Han Fei couldn't help but look at Lurin Quang. "Do you want me to kill him?" I'd better not kill him. In the future, the 100 Flowers Palace will surrender to us. Luren Kwong shook his head. No, you have to kill him. Anyway, you were just a projection. Alas, no, Fei Fei. Do you still have the strength to talk? Han Fei said, well, what if I tell you that this is my real body? Luren Kwong, Luo Xiaobai, the Void Vine, the people of the 100 Flowers Palace. Luren Kwong's fighting spirit disappeared immediately, but he still looked incredulous. Don't talk nonsense. Who are you fooling? Can this jade slip summon your real body? Han Fei said with a weird look, you're the only one who can. You really summon my real body. Hum, 3 holy beams of light descended in a row, falling on Luren Kwong, Luo Xiaobai, and the Void Vine. The injuries on the 3 of them were recovering crazily. At this time, everyone finally found that something was wrong. Luo Xiaobai said, no, you are not a phantom. You're a real body. Han Fei said with a smile, I am a real body. Otherwise, the phantom image would be very big. At the very least, it would look scary. Luren Kwong was stunned. Wait, can this thing you gave us summon our real bodies? Then what if you summon us at some critical moment? Luren Kwong was still stunned, but Luo Xiaobai seemed to understand something. Although she was a little surprised why Han Fei was here, Han Fei's appearance was quite coincidental. The Void Vine completely stretched out and shouted at the opposite side, come on, all of you. Hurry up and hand over your resources and the Cloud Dream Fruit, all of them. Han Fei smiled. That's fine. The people of the 100 Flowers Palace were dumbfounded. They didn't understand why Han Fei was here. However, when they felt the almost suffocating pressure, accompanied by a terrifying killing intent, they couldn't help but be horrified. Everyone was shocked. Who was Han Fei? He had slaughtered many people in the Pioneer Sea realm. How could a half-king resist the ghastly killing intent on his body? The Void Vine had gone to dig out resources, and Luren Kwong was still scratching his head and tilting his head to look at Han Fei. Fei, are you really your real body? Han Fei said grumpily, I just came here by accident. I was about to find a way out, but you suddenly crushed the jade slip I gave you. How could I not come here? Luren Kwong exclaimed, there are people in the Pioneer Sea realm here. Luo Xiaobai nodded. It seems that you have encountered some problems. Han Fei nodded slightly. I did suffer a big loss, a huge loss, a bloody loss. Luo Xiaobai saw that Han Fei's face was twisted. Then it seems that you suffered a lot. Anything that could make Han Fei so agitated and resentful was definitely not a good thing. Otherwise, Han Fei wouldn't have shown up here. Han Fei glanced at the Void Vine and said lightly, leave some resources for them. Then Han Fei said to them, the 100 Flowers Palace will surrender sooner or later. Now, you shouldn't be enemies with the Yin Yang Heaven. This time, you learn a lesson. Next time, it won't be so simple. With that, Han Fei waved his hand casually, and the half-kings were sent flying tens of thousands of kilometers away. Chapter 2024. Han Fei was going to look for the highest level Cloud Dream Fruit after the nautical panorama was restored. However, he suddenly heard Luren Kwong's call, so he came directly to the place where the highest level Cloud Dream Fruit was. This was also the fundamental reason why Luo Xiaobai and the others wanted to compete with the people of the 100 Flowers Palace. At this moment, Han Fei killed the people of the 100 Flowers Palace, only to see the Void Vine return with a pile of Sun Moon shells and 4 Cloud Dream Fruits. The Void Vine was so happy that it was twisted. Han Fei took a look. The highest one was 5-leaf, and the others were 3-leaf. It seemed that the people of the 100 Flowers Palace didn't get many Cloud Dream Fruits. Luo Xiaobai said, on this tree similar to the Cloud Sea Divine tree, this kind of fruit grows in many places. You can distinguish their age and effect according to the number of leaves. This 5-leaf fruit may be misled after being swallowed. If no one is guarding it, they won't dare to swallow it immediately under normal circumstances, so it was a good thing for us. Luren Kwong nodded. They must have been too late. Otherwise, they would have eaten this 5-leaf fruit a long time ago. Han Fei looked at the battlefield in the distance, where there was a barrier emitting a green jade luster. At this moment, the barrier had been mostly broken and covered with cracks. It seemed that a great battle had taken place there. Luo Xiaobai said, "There is a seven-leaf spiritual fruit over there. There was a flood dragon in the Pioneer Sea State guarding it, but it was killed by us. But maybe because we made too much noise, we attracted the attention of the people of the Hundred Flowers Palace." The Void Vine hurriedly said, "Yes, in this environment, even if they don't have perception, their detection ability is much better than that of the people of the other immortal palaces." Han Fei said in surprise, "You haven't got it yet?" Luren Kuang said, "We'll get it soon." "Fei Fei, have you eaten this fruit? Let's each have a try first." Han Fei shook his head. "I've already eaten it. It's not of much use to me." Han Fei glanced at the five-leaf cloud dream fruit, only to find that it could only provide 101 strands of chaotic energy. He estimated that the seven-leaf cloud dream fruit could provide 500 strands. But even so, the effect of the cloud dream fruit on him was still too low. Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Then please protect us." Han Fei waved his hand, and the ultimate blade shot out. Luo Xiaobai and Luren Kuang didn't see what happened. They only heard a few clangs on the green jade barrier, and then the green jade barrier broke. The Void Vine exclaimed, "It's broken so easily?" Luren Kuang was helpless. "Fei Fei, how did you attack? Why can't we see it?" Everyone flew over. Luo Xiaobai controlled the demonic plant, picked the seven-leaf cloud dream fruit, and brought it over. Then she saw the ultimate blade floating in front of Han Fei and was quite curious. Han Fei said, "I got a divine weapon here. It's just a little faster. There's nothing special about it." "Divine artifact?" Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. She really couldn't stand Han Fei's pretentious face anymore. The Void Vine was extremely envious. A human sovereign had already obtained a divine tool. Were there so many resources in the Imperial Palace? Luren Kuang couldn't help drooling. Are there many divine weapons of this level in this Imperial Palace? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. It should be a lot, but it's still a little dangerous. This saber only killed Ji Xian in a few breaths of time. Luo Xiaobai, Luren Kuang shrugged. "Then forget it. I think this environment is quite suitable for us." Luo Xiaobai said helplessly, "Put away your divine weapon and protect me." Han Fei chuckled. "Hey, you guys eat." The cloud dream fruit was of little use to Han Fei, but it was very useful to Luren Kuang and Luo Xiaobai. Especially Luo Xiaobai. This exotic spiritual fruit was a great tonic for her, so the seven-leaf cloud dream fruit must be hers. More than 2 hours later, the three of them woke up one after another. The moment Luo Xiaobai woke up, everyone felt that there was a sudden change in the surroundings. They seemed to be in the wilderness, surrounded by clouds and mist, and in the depths of the clouds and mist, there seemed to be a big tree growing vigorously. But this strange scene disappeared after only a few minutes. Han Fei keenly noticed that this seemed to be a kind of Tao. Sure enough, Luo Xiaobai said, "The stronger my Tao heart is, the stronger my strength should be by 30%. Lu Rinquang and the Void Vine were surprised. "So much improvement?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "That's how it is. If you understand it, you will understand it." Han Fei was deep in thought. The tree just now should be the key to Luo Xiaobai's strength. But Han Fei didn't need to ask. He just said, "The late stage of the Imperial Palace is very dangerous. If the next place is the same as here, you should explore it slowly. Don't rush. Don't set foot in the king's realm." Feeling that Han Fei was serious at this moment, Luo Xiaobai couldn't help but frown slightly. "You shouldn't be here. What happened?" Lu Rinquang also said yes. "I'm also curious. You can get a divine weapon. Why are you here?" Alas, Han Fei heaved a long sigh. "Speaking of which, this is a wrong choice I made." Blah, blah. Facing Lu Rinquang and Luo Xiaobai, Han Fei had nothing to hide. Besides, since they had encountered each other, of course he had to tell them about some dangerous areas. So Han Fei started from the insect-tide forest. Of course, Han Fei omitted the infinity mirror. He just talked about the danger of the places he had experienced and the people he had met. When the three of them heard this, their hearts jumped in fright. The Void Vine trembled all over. "What? More than 10 kings have died. Lu Kwang asked, "Is that golden arm really so powerful? Killing a king with one punch? My goodness. So this emperor palace wasn't prepared for us half-monarchs, right?" Han Fei said, "So, when you feel that the danger is getting greater and greater, and you can no longer rely on talent and trump cards to survive, you'd better choose to retreat to a safe place. A true crisis was a narrow escape from death. Even here, the flood dragon you just killed is probably not simple, right? When I came, I found that the three of you were actually seriously injured." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Yes, that flood dragon has the strength of the Pioneer Sea State. With the combined strength of the two of us, we used a secret technique to shatter 6 supreme-grade divine weapons before we managed to grind it to death." Han Fei said, "So, even this relatively safe place is so dangerous. You can imagine the danger in the depths of the palace. I wonder where Zhang Xuanyu and Xia Xiaochan are now." Luo Xiaobai said, "Xiaochan has already been in the Pioneer Sea State. According to your experience, she shouldn't appear in the same place as us. At least, you're the first foreign Pioneer Sea State powerhouse we have met." Han Fei said, "So I have to find the bronze tree. You may not believe it, but you have to see it with your own eyes to know how many treasures there are." However, Luo Xiaobai took a deep look at Han Fei and said, "I think you don't have to look for that tree." Huh? Han Fei was stunned. Not only Han Fei, but even Lu Kwang and the Void Vine were stunned. Lu Kwang was surprised. "Why not? Those are all ultimate treasures." However, Luo Xiaobai shook her head slightly. "Treasures are not necessarily ultimate treasures. Just in this forest where we are, the probability of dying is not small, right? So in the end, we all gathered on this big tree. Obviously, this is more like an experience or an assessment. And what Han Fei experienced was obviously the inheritance of the Supreme Emperor's 5 reincarnations. Although many kings died, the Supreme Emperor must have thought of this when he set up this risk. He just wanted to pick out the people who could get his inheritance. As Han Fei said, there are so many treasures on the bronze tree. Once there are so many treasures, they're no longer unique. They can only be said to be a kind of high-level resource of the same level. In the depths of this palace, there must be something more advanced than them." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean?" Luo Xiaobai asked, "Didn't you say that when you came out of the illusion of the bronze tree, you found that someone should have taken the initiative to leave?" Han Fei was puzzled. "Yes," Luo Xiaobai said, "those who achieve great things don't scheme with others. You should not look at why others stay there, but think about why that person left. No matter who this person is, why can he resist such a great temptation and choose to leave?" Han Fei was shocked by Luo Xiaobai's words. "Yes. Why did someone leave in advance? Was it because the things on the bronze divine tree were not good enough? Every single treasure in that place was something that countless people yearned for even in their dreams." Luo Xiaobai said, "From the location of the Half-King and the Sea Expansion Realm, we can tell that the areas we are training in are different. It was just an accident that you came here. I guess that even if you act with us now, you must leave the place where we are training for some special reason." Luo Xiaobai calmly analyzed, "And whether it is the Half-King or the Sea Expansion Realm, there's only one purpose here, which is to accept the inheritance of the Imperial Palace. Because there are very few inheritors, the probability of dying here is very high. Because the heaven-opening realm experts can't come in, we can even conclude that there may be a power in the underground palace that can stop the heaven-opening realm experts. This means that the Sea Expansion Realm is the highest tolerance level for the trial of the Imperial Palace. This also means that only the Sea Expansion Realm experts have a chance to get the real inheritance of the Imperial Palace." Han Fei asked, "The real inheritance of the Imperial Palace?" Luo Xiaobai said, "The Supreme Emperor built the Imperial Palace to pass it on to future generations. Do you think he will spread the news of the entire Arch Palace?" Wow, Lu Kwang, Han Fei, and the Void Vine all gasped. Hearing Luo Xiaobai's words, everyone felt that it was very likely. Han Fei also felt that it made sense. Otherwise, why would the Supreme Emperor set up an imperial palace here? Did he really have nothing better to do? Chapter 2025. One day later, the nautical panorama was restored. Han Fei naturally wouldn't stay here, and Luo Xiaobai was no longer interested in this place because she had already obtained the highest level 7-leaf cloud dream fruit. Han Fei also searched with the nautical panorama, and the result made everyone realize that there was only one 7-leaf cloud dream fruit, which was the one that Luo Xiaobai swallowed. After discovering that the 7-leaf cloud dream fruit was so rare, Han Fei didn't even use the nautical panorama. He just found a branch that pierced through the void nearby. It seemed that the initial design of the Imperial Palace had already considered the ways to enter and exit the major dangerous places. Han Fei entered the void with Luo Xiaobai and the others, and Han Fei also gave each of Luren Kuang and the others a jade slip with a full-strength strike. If he gave too many of these things, it would consume his soul and essence blood. As for the resources consumed, he didn't care, but if his soul power was consumed too much, it would be detrimental to his cultivation. Generally, if he didn't have a good relationship with them or valued them, he wouldn't give them to them casually. The four of them stepped into the void. As soon as they stepped in, the entire dark void trembled, and a void storm suddenly rose, trying to engulf the four of them. Han Fei was shocked. It's the power of the Pioneer Sea State. Han Fei didn't dare to be careless. He directly cut open a void storm with the Dao Unification Sword technique, and then pulled out a large void crack with the draw technique, stabilized the exit, and then pushed the Luo Xiaobai and the others out with the palm. In the end, Luo Xiaobai said, "My guess is right. You shouldn't meet us for a while. Don't worry about the bronze tree." Before Luo Xiaobai finished speaking, the two sides completely separated. When Han Fei reappeared, he was in a white cloud, and in this cloud, there was a white jade stone road, no more than 3 or 5 meters wide and endless long. Beside the entrance of the path, there was a puppet standing at the moment. The reason why it was called a puppet was that its skin had dried up, but its flesh and blood were not rotten, and its eyes were still pale and dull. Even so, it couldn't change the appearance of this puppet. Clatter, clatter, Han Fei couldn't help but look at the path. He could vaguely hear the sound of surging waves on the other side of the path. At that moment, the bulky puppet spoke in a stiff voice. "The participant's strength has exceeded the normal trial's range. To avoid affecting the normal trial, you will enter the ultimate trial directly." Han Fei was speechless. Is this the final trial? I didn't even need to find the way, as I directly pulled myself over for the final test. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, if I pass the ultimate trial, will I be able to control this Imperial Palace? However, the puppet didn't speak at this moment, as if it didn't hear him at all. This made Han Fei wonder if the puppet had its own consciousness. Han Fei asked again, "You have to tell me what this path is, right? Where does it lead to?" The puppet still didn't speak. Han Fei asked a few more questions tentatively, but the puppet didn't respond. Even its gray pupils didn't move at all. Han Fei knew nothing about this so-called ultimate trial. Han Fei couldn't help but take out the nautical panorama and said, "Find other exits here." Who knew if this puppet's appearance was good or bad? Who knew if this path would lead to that ultimate smelting trial? No matter whether he wanted to go or not, he had to see if there was a way out first. However, the nautical panorama didn't turn at all. Han Fei asked, "Where is the ultimate trial?" Crack, crack, crack. The nautical panorama pointed directly at the path. Han Fei's eyelids twitched slightly, and he asked again, "What is the purpose of my trip?" The nautical panorama trembled slightly and still pointed at the path, unchanged. Although the effect of the nautical panorama had been used up 3 times today, Han Fei relaxed. He just had to wait one more day. Since he had come to this so-called ultimate trial, he was not in a hurry. Han Fei sighed slightly, just a little regretful. He missed the bronze tree, and Luo Xiaobai's explanation was right. But his resources couldn't be replenished, which was the biggest headache for Han Fei. He missed the source sea of so many kings and lost a lot of resources in vain. Otherwise, all of them might be enough to make up for his loss. Now, even if his strength was at its peak, his resources were still insufficient. He hoped that the next final trial wouldn't require him to consume too many resources. The next day, since the puppet dragged Han Fei here, it didn't say a word except to tell him why he was here. At this moment, Han Fei was already standing at the entrance of the narrow, cloudy path. When he was about to step on the path, he heard the puppet suddenly say, "Once you step on the endless corridor, there is no turning back." Ha! Han Fei smiled faintly, shook his head, and stepped into the path. Han Fei thought, "Is it useful to tell me this now? Do I have any other way to go? Since there is no other way, isn't it nonsense?" Only in this place could one know the horror of the so-called final trial. As soon as Han Fei stepped in, he found that the path in front of him had disappeared. Half a foot in front of him was the fog, and he couldn't perceive anything. He couldn't even see his own fingers. His eyes were meaningless here. Han Fei looked back, and there was indeed no path. It was as if he was standing alone in the fog. When Han Fei looked back, his pupils suddenly constricted, and the fog around him turned into a weird illusion. This was actually the road to the Thug Academy in the Blue Sea town. In front of him, Luo Xiaobai and the other three were walking side by side. Xiao Xiaochan looked back at Han Fei and said, "Come on, we're almost home." Han Fei's mouth twitched. "Isn't this *T? This is such a lousy illusion." However, when Han Fei stepped into this illusion, he had a feeling that his feet were on the ground, and it was extremely real. This feeling terrified Han Fei. If he really followed them back to the Thug Academy, what would he do? Of course, Han Fei wouldn't test it blindly. So, fortunately, Han Fei waited one more day before coming in, waiting for the navigator to reset. Han Fei took out the navigator. "Where's the way?" However, the navigator spun randomly a few times, and in the end, the pointer pointed at Han Fei for the first time. The way is with me?" Han Fei knew that the navigator couldn't point out the direction or would directly lead him away from here. But since the navigator pointed at him, there might be another possibility. That was, if he wanted to pass this road, he had to rely on himself. While Han Fei was in a daze, the environment around him changed again, and this time he appeared in the seaweed wall of the level 3 fishery. He could even feel that the seaweed touched him, which was extremely real. In front of him, illusions kept appearing, but the original road was gone. Han Fei simply closed his eyes, blocking his vision and even his sense of touch. But even so, Han Fei still heard the sound of the tide. Fortunately, Han Fei directly blocked his 5 senses and 6 senses. He sneered. This was nothing more than trying to disturb him through these illusions. Han Fei stepped forward, not noticing, not hearing, not seeing. This made Han Fei feel like a wandering soul, as if drifting in the void. But after moving forward for only 100 steps, Han Fei always felt that something was staring at him, and even wanted to kill him. This feeling was very strong, which forced Han Fei to open his eyes. At the moment Han Fei opened his eyes, he saw a golden arm coming at him. F***CK. The murderous intent, the pressure, and the power that triggered his blood were extremely real. Just when Han Fei was about to counterattack, something suddenly occurred to him. Wait, how could this golden arm appear here? And the surrounding environment? Isn't this the land of 5 graves? Is it fake? Han Fei had a plan in his heart, and his shock turned into confidence. He sneered. It's just an arm. What kind of bloodline, spiritual heritage, and talent do I have? How can I be afraid of you? Even if I stand still, what can you do to me? Han Fei grinned and opened his arms, not intimidated at all. Bam! Han Fei was 100% sure that this thing was fake. Even if it was real, did he learn the pure mystic body and the void fire refining technique for nothing? Han Fei sneered. I thought you had some new tricks, but a fake is a fake after all. However, at the moment when the golden arm hit Han Fei only felt that his soul was trembling and his body was covered in blood and cracks. The power of this blow almost shattered Han Fei, and his 5 senses and 6 senses that had been sealed quickly returned. Huh? Really? Han Fei didn't believe it was true, but it was an indisputable fact that he was almost killed. No, it's still fake. Although he felt the crisis of death, Han Fei knew that everything was fake. He knew it from the moment he saw the land of 5 graves just now. However, could the illusory scenes here turn into real attacks? The apocalyptic divine technique descended, and Han Fei punched back the golden arm. Although a mouthful of blood was sucked, Han Fei recalled the sentence of the puppet. Once you step on the endless corridor, there is no turning back. Chapter 2026. After Han Fei was punched by the golden arm, he was horrified. Why couldn't illusions kill people? Swish, Han Fei flipped his hand and threw out the ultimate blade, blocking the golden arm with the ultimate blade. As a low-quality divine weapon, the ultimate blade was naturally extremely powerful. Han Fei couldn't think of a few people in the sea expansion realm who could resist it. Even in the face of the golden arm, Han Fei didn't think the ultimate blade couldn't stop it. Clank, clank, clank. Sure enough, in an instant, the golden arm suffered thousands of attacks from the ultimate blade. And Han Fei quickly picked up the fishing rod, broke through time, and fished from the void 6 times in a row before he finally fished out a golden arm. Gemini Divine Technique. Han Fei activated the Gemini Divine Technique and replaced his white mist body with a golden arm. At that moment, Han Fei felt that he was invincible. However, when Han Fei felt that he could fight the golden arm and wouldn't be defeated at all, with a pop, the golden arm that was being strangled by the ultimate blade burst and disappeared like a bubble. Han Fei frowned. Are you kidding me? As soon as I was ready, the illusion of the golden arm disappeared. Han Fei seriously wondered if someone was deliberately manipulating all this behind the fog. Han Fei couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. If someone was watching him, wouldn't he have exposed all his trump cards? Han Fei said, Old Yuan, what do you think of this fog? The nautical panorama is useless. Do you have any ideas? And at this time, the old turtle's voice sounded leisurely. Do you dare to listen to my ideas now? Han Fei said grumpily, It's not your fault. I was too greedy. I also felt that the probability of success was very high. I just accidentally screwed it up. At this time, it was time to listen to the opinions of the seniors. Although the old turtle was also only in the sky expansion realm, even if he might have slept for 1,000,000 years, he should be more knowledgeable than Han Fei. After hearing Han Fei's explanation, the old turtle said, Actually, I don't know what you are fighting with. From this king's independent vision, you are just randomly hitting the fog. But you were indeed heavily injured by something in the fog. Are you saying that I'm hitting randomly? The old turtle said, At least from my point of view, that's the case. But this empress can't see through this fog, so I can only offer a guess. What speculation? The old turtle. From the moment you set foot on this path has ceased to exist. How can you be sure that the path you saw outside exists? What do you mean? The old turtle said, I think that what the eyes see isn't necessarily the truth. The road you saw outside might not be real, and the fog you see here might not be real either. You need to comprehend it on your own. What I say and what you comprehend are 2 completely different concepts. Old Yuan, you actually know what's going on, don't you? The old turtle was silent. You have to comprehend it. Once you do, you will be able to pass this trial in the blink of an eye. Han Fei couldn't help but ponder over what the old turtle meant. What the eyes saw was not necessarily the truth. So suppose that the road he saw outside was fake, and then suppose that the fog he saw here was fake. If these were all fake, then where was he? Since they were all fake, why should he make a path for himself? Wait, is this the path in the popular sense that I understand? Path? The yellow mud road is also a path, and the path of the Great Way is also a path. What is this path exactly? What should I comprehend? If all this is fake, then the so-called path actually does not exist. Why can't I see through what the old turtle can see at a glance? Han Fei couldn't help but think that the nautical panorama pointed to him, which meant that this path was in him. Just like the old turtle said, he had to walk out by himself. Wait, why should I go? Since this path does not exist, why should I take it? The path is the Tao. If I comprehend it, I will pass it. Does the Tao refer to the Great Way? Standing alone in the fog, Han Fei pondered for a long time. He suddenly raised his head. The Tao heart? Han Fei suddenly woke up. Since he became the queen, He had been talking about the Tao heart to Xia Xiaochan and the others. Although they didn't understand, he explained it over and over again. How could he have forgotten about it when he got here? A smile gradually appeared on the corner of Han Fei's mouth. Comprehending the Tao, in the end, only the Tao heart was left. His Tao heart was firm, like an invincible heart, fearless. Han Fei's temperament suddenly changed from confusion to calmness and indifference, showing a huge contrast. No wonder the old turtle didn't panic at all. He even described a half-truth story to him. Indeed, if the old turtle said it directly, it would be a little bit boring. But what he comprehended was peace of mind and fearlessness. Therefore, when Han Fei's mind was clear, he didn't care about the fog at all. He strode forward, calm and composed. He no longer sealed his five senses, letting the fog illusions around him continue to evolve. But none of them could touch Han Fei, and with every step Han Fei took, they automatically disappeared. After only 30 steps, Han Fei's eyes suddenly opened up. Clatter, clatter. At this time, Han Fei heard the sound of waves. It turned out that in Han Fei's field of vision, there was a sea. The sea breeze blew his cheeks, and Han Fei could even see some common low-level shells on the beach. Of course, Han Fei's attention was not on this, but on a mirage on this sea. Han Fei was sure that he didn't see it wrong, but a mirage might be a bit ridiculous. Whose mirage was a huge bronze gate. This gate stood in the distant sky and covered half of the sky. If it wasn't the Void Temple's bronze gate that covered half the sky, what else could it be? Oh, the ultimate trial? Is this the ultimate trial? Han Fei couldn't help wondering if Chu Hao was once a member of the Void Temple. The more Han Fei thought about it, the more likely it was. Otherwise, why would the entrance trial of the Void Temple appear in the chaotic ocean? Otherwise, why would the bronze gate of the Void Temple become the ultimate test of the Imperial Palace? The bronze gate, as usual, was in the sky, but Han Fei could still see the misty stairs below the bronze gate on the blue waves, descending from the sky. Han Fei's eyes lit up. It was indeed difficult to comprehend the Taoist heart. Furthermore, the steps weren't easy to climb. Regardless of whether it was easy or not, he had finally seen the last trial of the Void Temple. If Han Fei's guess was right, there shouldn't be other trials of the Void Temple in the chaotic ocean. Otherwise, it would be stored in the Void Temple. Han Fei didn't consider why the Void Temple appeared on the distant sea. Anyway, it was only a short distance, and he could cross it with a golden leap. Therefore, without any hesitation, Han Fei really leaped and flashed out. However, when a golden light flashed, Han Fei appeared in midair above the sea, and his face suddenly changed. Because it was such a short distance, but he couldn't cross it with a single leap. It didn't make sense. Besides, when Han Fei looked back, there was already a vast ocean, and he couldn't see where he came from. Son of AB asterisk TCH. I was too careless. I should have known it wouldn't be so simple. At this moment, Han Fei became vigilant. He saw a sharp claw in the sea, like a giant shadow emerging from the bottom of the sea. It was tens of thousands of meters long and seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. Han Fei's instinctive reaction was to fight. But when the huge claw was almost in front of him, and the wind was whistling in his ears, Han Fei narrowed his eyes, activated the Tao, and strengthened himself with the invincible will. He didn't move and let the claw cut down. Unfortunately, Han Fei guessed wrong. Almost in an instant, his body was split in half. This time, he didn't use the Gemini divine technique. He was really split in half. However, in the void, a blue light flashed, and Han Fei's collapsed body walked out of time. At this moment, Han Fei looked solemn. A casual blow is the power of the heaven-opening state. Because Han Fei didn't read anything from the demon purification pot, he dared to take the blow head-on. Since the endless corridor ahead tested the Taoist heart, why didn't it test here? What if the venerable emperor's prank was to mislead people into thinking that the trial in this sea didn't test the Taoist heart? However, Han Fei accidentally lost the gamble. But even if he lost, Han Fei could still reverse time, so he didn't panic. The demon purification pot can't read anything? It shouldn't be, unless this thing is fake. Thinking of this, Han Fei shouted, "Fuse!" Little black and little white fused, and the yin-yang divine eyes appeared. After Han Fei landed on the sea, he flickered and appeared on the bottom of the sea. No matter how big this behemoth was, could it be bigger than the behemoths? They were hundreds of kilometers in size and were the real behemoths in the sea. When Han Fei appeared on the bottom of the sea, he saw a huge, indescribable, strange creature, like a huge sunflower, facing him with its huge sunflower face. Below the sunflower, there were giant vines covered by demonic plants such as rattan algae and sea anemones. Around the sunflower, there were 5 huge eyes, each of which was dozens of kilometers long. On the face of the sunflower, there were dense sunflower seeds and a black hole in the center. Swish, swish, swish. The sunflower seed-like fruits turn out to be the claws that attacked him just now. Now, a dozen of them popped out at once. F***CK. Chapter 2027. A giant demon in the heaven-opening state. Han Fei frowned. Judging from the power of the blow just now, this demon plant definitely had the combat power of the heaven-opening state. However, it was hard to say whether this demon plant was real or not, because the demon purification pot didn't read any information about it. But was this thing fake? It might not necessarily be fake. Just like the golden arm he encountered, even if it was fake, it could still hurt him. And this sunflower, even if it was fake, could still cut him in half. Han Fei activated his Dao and activated the invincible eye. Of course, there were strong and weak ones in the heaven-opening state. Han Fei knew that he barely had the power of the heaven-opening state at present. However, this was enough. One was physique strength, one was strength, and the last was speed. However, in terms of comprehensive strength, Han Fei was still far from the heaven-opening state. However, this didn't prevent Han Fei from fighting first. When he saw this sunflower, Han Fei also understood the way to the Bronze Gate. It must be the black hole in the center of the sunflower's big face. If he could go to the Bronze Gate, he would have gone there a long time ago. Did they really want to stop him by setting up a heaven-opening state demon plant in the sea? No. The puppet said that his strength was beyond the scope of ordinary trials, so it directly caught him for the ultimate trial. That meant that the ultimate trial corresponded to his level of strength. The top 10 in the chaotic ocean sea all had the power of the heaven-opening state, and he was even more powerful than that. Therefore, Han Fei guessed that the existence of this demon plant was just to test his basic strength. Swish, 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 the dozens of blades that looked like sunflower seeds leaped across the sky. This time, Han Fei saw it clearly. Because the tails of the sunflower seeds were connected to a thread, the distance they slashed out was particularly long and looked extremely ferocious. Han Fei held the infinity water in his hand and turned into thousands of flying blades, rushing at the sunflower seeds that looked like giant claws. Since he was already here, there was nothing Han Fei didn't dare to do. No matter how powerful this sunflower was, it was only at the heaven-opening state. No matter how strong the heaven-opening state was, he couldn't even escape or reverse time. Different from the situation in the mist just now, Han Fei was very determined this time. Even the old turtle said, "Don't worry. If it comes down to it, I will lend you a hand." Bang, bang, bang. Although the quality of infinity water had been improved, it was still a sea-quelling bizarre treasure after all. It was still far from being a divine weapon. However, it did not mean that the heaven-opening state could resist the attack of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Otherwise, if a heaven-opening stage expert could even block a top-grade sea-quelling bizarre treasure, wouldn't he have to use a divine weapon to kill a heaven-opening stage expert? Thus, when the two of them collided, clang, 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 dense sounds of collisions resounded, and ripples surged out like raindrops in a disorderly manner. It could be said that no one could do anything to the other. This sunflower did not display any special great Tao. When it felt the resistance of the infinity water, all the sunflower seeds exploded together. That scene was really like a storm of pear blossoms. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. With so many attacks equivalent to the power of the heaven-opening state, he certainly couldn't block them. Even if the infinity water could block them, it was under his control. If he tried to block them forcibly, it would only consume his spiritual power, slow down his spirit, and reduce his combat power. Therefore, Han Fei could only use the golden light leap. However, there seemed to be something wrong with the void here. He didn't move forward much after the leap, but instead, he was directly immersed in the waves of the terrifying giant claws. Han Fei was shocked. Since the golden light leap didn't work, what about the ultimate speed he had just comprehended? Although he had inherited the ultimate speed when he inherited the ultimate blade, he certainly didn't have time to study it in such a short time. However, he didn't have time to study it. Han Fei had also inherited this great Tao, so in the countless giant claws of the sunflower seeds, Han Fei was as agile as a shadow. At the moment of each giant claw, he made an instant judgment. He was really dancing on the tip of the blade. If others saw this, their jaws would definitely drop in shock. If they were accidentally slashed, they might be crushed into pieces in an instant. Even if Han Fei could use the Gemini divine technique to fight the enemies in the form of black and white mist, it didn't mean that these giant claws couldn't hit him. Once they hit him, the black and white mist would be easily cut, and the effect might not be as good as now. Swish, 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 although the blades were endless. In fact, Han Fei's dodging only happened in the blink of an eye. The whole process was so fast that it took no more than 1 second for Han Fei to dodge the giant claws of the sunflower seeds. There were as many as 10,000 giant claws of the sunflower seeds. At this time, the giant claw of the sunflower seeds actually had the function of retracting. What was shot out was a giant claw, and it was retracted like a sharp sword returning to its shell extremely fast. Han Fei stretched out his hand and waved, and the infinity water quickly returned. Han Fei turned into a void hand, grabbed a giant claw of the sunflower seeds, and with the speed of its return, he went to the black hole in the middle. But at this moment, the 5 big eyes around the sunflower lit up at the same time. Han Fei had forgotten about this. He really didn't know what these big eyes were for. But the 5 big eyes, like charging lasers, were surging with energy, and the 5 were about to shoot out. F***CK. Is it so high-end? If it was charging lasers, it would also be at the extreme speed, wouldn't it? It would only be faster than him, not slower than him. Therefore, Han Fei made a prompt decision. The infinity water directly wrapped around his body, and the immortal killing aura blocked in front of him without hesitation. Swish, swish, swish. Sure enough, the 5 energy beams intertwined in the middle, forming a light curtain. The enemies didn't hit him at all, but waited for him to break through. Oh, dragon transformation technique. Crack. At that moment, Han Fei activated the dragon transformation technique, swallowed a 5th-level Tao pattern pill, and directly broke through. This level seemed to depend on his strength. There was nothing to say. He just had to break through. BM, like an energy barrier, Han Fei crashed into it, and even the infinity water began to burn. Han Fei felt as if he was passing through the center of the earth, and he was about to be cooked. Han Fei seemed to see his body melting, his flesh and blood blurring, and his vision going blind. He felt that if he rushed into the black hole, he would probably be melted too. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be impatient, because if they rushed forward, they would be melted, and it would be too late to get out. But Han Fei had long suspected that this sunflower was fake, and he even let it hack him once. Although this thing did hack him just now, there was no information, and Han Fei still suspected that it was fake. He suspected that this was still a test of his Taoist heart. Therefore, Han Fei rushed forward without hesitation. Even when Han Fei felt that his consciousness was about to disappear, he didn't turn back time. Swish. At that moment, Han Fei rushed into the black hole, only to feel a coolness all over his body. When he suddenly opened his eyes, he was shocked to find that the scene in front of him had changed. Right in front of him was the misty steppes that were still emitting smoke. And next to Han Fei, it was the puppet that he had seen before. F***CK. Everything is fake. So I've been here for a long time. Han Fei was speechless. This kind of thing, no matter how fancy it was always the same. They were all deceiving you from all aspects, penetrating your soul, body, and mind, but you didn't even know it. Han Fei couldn't help but make up his mind. In the future, he would also do such fancy tests. Just the thought of watching others die under your casual arrangements was exhilarating. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the puppet next to him. I really doubt whether you're real or fake. Of course, the muscular man didn't respond, and the old turtle shouted, I've been deceived too. Han Fei said, I guess you may be suppressed later. I may not even be able to communicate with the source sea. Those ahead may just be appetizers. This road is the most difficult. The old turtle said, the Void Temple, as long as you don't destroy me. Han Fei felt that he was in his peak state, so he set foot on the road of trial again without hesitation. Since he had already come this far, there was no reason to hesitate anymore. Han Fei walked up the steps step by step, but he didn't feel any pressure or danger. Huh, so easy? Han Fei stepped on 1,000 steps and stood on the steps, only to see that the steps extended infinitely. And in front of him stood a girl in a fiery red dress. Her appearance was comparable to Xia Xiaochan's. However, Xia Xiaochan was born to be cute. If she didn't fight, you wouldn't know that Xia Xiaochan was actually hot-tempered. And this girl was obviously hot, not because of her clothes, but because of her personality. Looking at the big knife next to her that was burning with raging flames, Han Fei knew that she was a strength-type player. Besides, her expression was very cold and arrogant. Just by looking at her, Han Fei felt that he had been underestimated. Before Han Fei said anything, the fiery girl said, Void Temple, in the final test, you need to answer 3 questions from me and take 3 slashes from me. If you have no questions, you can pass. A faint smile appeared on Han Fei's face. Go ahead. Chapter 2028. Han Fei didn't expect that the final test would be like this. He was stopped by a little girl to ask questions. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't underestimate this girl. Since she was allowed to take the final test, she couldn't be weak. However, if she asked a question, there would be many possibilities. As long as it was a question, the answer might be different. Of course, he wouldn't take the initiative to cater to her. This was a matter of ideas. If he had to answer a question against his own will, if it was anyone else, they would not be able to accept it. Because everyone had their own ideas, everyone was different. He couldn't just cater to the ideas that didn't match his own just to become a disciple of the Void Temple. The girl asked coldly, if one day you are faced with a choice, betray the Void Temple or die, what will you choose? Han Fei said with a smile, I, Han Fei, will never betray my teammates. Of course, the premise is that these people are really my teammates. We can share weal and woe, and we can live and die together. The girl said, so, if you don't treat us as teammates, you can betray us without any qualms. Han Fei said with a smile, you can think of it that way. I'll treat others the way they treat me. If the Void Temple doesn't treat me well, do you think I'll take it seriously? The girl glared at him. Aren't you afraid that the Void Temple will kill you now? Han Fei sneered. The Void Temple has set up a lot of tests. I dare not say that I'm the strongest and the most talented, but it's not easy for me to get here. I don't think you'll attack me because of this. Otherwise, the Void Temple will be too shameless. With that said, Han Fei said, Girl, you've already asked 3 questions. However, the girl glared at him again. I only asked one. Han Fei was speechless. Do you not know how to count? It was 1 question, but 3 questions were generated. We even discussed them. How did it become 1? The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. You're not going back on your word. The girl said just 1. Okay, it's time for you to take my blow. Han Fei was speechless. Fine, I'll take 1. He would not take advantage of this. The girl said, your physique shouldn't be weak, and you can control the art of time. In that case, you won't be able to block this strike. In any case, you can reverse time. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He always felt that he was being watched all the way. Was it this girl? He even knew about his great Tao of time. Han Fei immediately said with a black face, Did you peep at me? Bah! The girl spat. Who's spying on you? I know. and I have my ways. You just have to take one of my attacks. But why can't I block it? Doesn't that mean I can only let you chop me? Han Fei could sense that the girl was getting impatient. She said, "Why do you have so many questions? In any case, I can't kill you. Watch the knife." Because the flaming long knife was even taller than the girl jumped up and grabbed the handle of the knife, which made Han Fei dumbfounded. However, in the next second, Han Fei didn't dare to be careless, because the girl swung the big knife 3 times. Each swing of the big knife was thousands of meters long, and the flames formed a domain with a whoosh. The scorching flames were even comparable to the five-eyed laser just now. As soon as the knife fell, it was as heavy as the sky collapsing, and the momentum was like thunder in the sky. The sharpness of the blade made the flames flow backward, which looked quite intimidating. Before the knife fell, Han Fei seemed to feel the bones in his body creaking. When the roaring flame wild knife fell, it was aimed at the top of Han Fei's head. F***, aren't you afraid of killing me? Han Fei slightly tilted his head. If his head was blown up by the knife, how could he maintain his image? Clang, crack, crack, crack. Han Fei felt as if a big star was pressing on his body, as if a small world was smashing on his shoulder, and he only managed to resist for 2 seconds. In the 3rd second, he heard his bones breaking, and he was cut from head to waist. His golden blood was almost burned up, making a sizzling sound. This knife was strong, but Han Fei felt that the girl didn't use the power of the heaven-opening realm. But even so, it at least proved one thing. In the sea-opening realm, there were still people who could break his defense so easily. Even though the girl couldn't cut it in half with a single slash, the distance between them was not far from it. Besides, when the girl attacked, she was quite casual. She just jumped up and held the knife, and took advantage of the momentum to cut him. Obviously, the girl didn't use her full strength. Han Fei directly reversed time and appeared next to her. When Han Fei recovered, he heard the girl say, "Go on." With that, the girl disappeared, and Han Fei had crossed 1,000 steps, and everything around him returned to normal. However, Han Fei didn't know whether this test was easy or difficult. In terms of difficulty, it was indeed easy, but in terms of answering questions, it was unknown. Han Fei shook his head slightly. No matter whether it was possible or not, he would find out later. As long as he stuck to his own idea, it would be over. He was lucky to enter the Void Temple. Even if he didn't enter, he still had the demon purification pot. Unless a strong master of the Void Temple came to kill him, Han Fei didn't think he would die here. When Han Fei stepped on the steps again, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. Why was there no power blocking the steps behind? Was the last test so easy? Han Fei crossed 1,000 steps in one breath, and soon reached the 2,000 step. He was very fast. However, when he just reached the 2,000 step, he saw a girl standing in the same style as just now, with a broadsword stabbed diagonally next to her. Han Fei was surprised. "Why are you here again?" The girl frowned. "Why are you here so fast?" Han Fei was dumbfounded. "I didn't encounter any obstacles when I came up. Of course I came here fast. Not to mention me. Even if it was anyone else, they would also be here in a flash, okay?" But Han Fei didn't know why the girl asked this. He couldn't help but ask. Then, "How slow should I be?" The girl said, "You should think about why it was so easy for you to climb without any obstacles." Han Fei was also puzzled. "Why?" The girl was also speechless. "Because you will face me again, and I will make you feel fear. You will be under pressure from the bottom of your heart." Han Fei. Han Fei didn't think so at all. "I thought you were just a projection that would be gone after the first test. I didn't expect that your projection would be so strong and remember what happened just now." Seeing Han Fei's blank expression, the girl was also speechless. She said angrily, "This time, you need to answer one more question of mine and take one attack from me. You could try to resist this attack." Han Fei asked, "That's it?" The girl, Han Fei didn't mean to belittle her. He just felt that there was no difference between 1 or 2 attacks from this girl. "You could just let me pass. I don't have to climb the stairs to wait for the test. You are already a king, but you still have to take this test every day. It's so annoying." The girl snorted coldly. "If you want to enter the Void Temple, you must have the strength to enter the Void Temple. Watch the knife." With that, the girl pulled the knife again. However, this time, Han Fei was fascinated. Because the fiery saber was still stuck in the ground, the girl jumped up and grabbed it, only to grab a saber-shaped flame. The girl jumped up and held the fiery saber that looked like a clone with both hands. In the air and around them, sparks were drifting. In Han Fei's eyes, what he saw was not a knife. What he saw was that in the world in front of him, there seemed to be flames from the outer space, slashing down from the sky and leisurely. This knife was very slow, but it was indeed terrifying. The scene was like the end of the world, as if a huge star had crashed and annihilated this world. More importantly, Han Fei felt a tingling pain in his soul. It turned out that this was not an attack aimed at his body, but at his soul. This terrifying power was actually the impression of this saber in his divine soul. Hiss! Han Fei gasped. If he was hit, would his soul be in danger? If he didn't make it in time, it would be too late for him to reverse time. Therefore, Han Fei stretched out his hand, grabbed the embroidery needle, gathered the power of his soul, and moved his body slightly, but the air around him was surging. On the embroidery needle, ripples appeared one after another, which showed how powerful Han Fei was. Divine Stab. Divine Stab was the strongest soul attack that Han Fei knew. Although its level was not high enough, compared with the 100-beast soul-devouring roar, its single explosive power was far superior. Most importantly, the level of combat skills didn't make much of a difference in the hands of a powerhouse like Han Fei, except for the particularly heaven-defying combat skills and divine arts. So, the knife had already been slashed down. The only thing that Han Fei could use was the heavenly god stab, which made Han Fei realize the shortcoming of his soul combat power. Chapter 2029. BM Pucci. When the two forces collided, Han Fei realized how powerful the girl was. She gave him a lot of opportunities to accumulate power, but when faced with this attack, the only thing the Divine Thorn could do was to protect himself. 1 second. 2 seconds. By the 8th second, Han Fei's Divine Thorn was almost disintegrated and couldn't resist the violent attack at all. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. Was it because the time the girl gave him to climb the 1,000 steps was actually for him to build up his strength, and he rushed up without thinking? However, at this point, Han Fei could only take it head-on. Tu-tu-tu-tu, under his feet, Taoist patterns appeared, and the soul-driving array crazily wrapped around him. At the moment when the Divine Thorn was about to collapse, a golden light burst out of the invincible eye, and Han Fei's invincible heart beat violently. With Han Fei's crazy roar, Han Fei was gradually completely exposed to this terrifying soul-slaying fire. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Han Fei was relying on his powerful spiritual strength. As a newly advanced king, Han Fei's spiritual strength had already reached a level that ordinary sea expansion experts couldn't hope to reach. That was because he could constantly devour and absorb. Of course, the premise was that there were so many souls to swallow. Of course, the reason why Han Fei chose to take this attack head-on was the demon purification pot. Although Han Fei only knew that his spiritual heritage seemed to be amazing and that his potential might be great, the girl opposite him was indeed strong. However, the young lady in front of him was indeed powerful. Her strength was too terrifying. A casual strike from her could cause the heavens and earth to change color. Moreover, she didn't seem to use much strength. This was what was truly frightening. Han Fei was speechless. She was just a tester. He guessed that this girl should be one of the people in the Void Temple, but not her real body. It was hard to say. Han Fei didn't think she was. He had never heard of a strong master who could safely descend into the chaotic ocean sea. Otherwise, how could Xia Xiaochan have survived to this day? When Han Fei persisted until the 38th minute, he finally couldn't hold on any longer. In his mind, Xiao Tong finally took action. Even though Han Fei was wrapped in endless waves of fire and his soul was like a small boat in the raging waves, the flame slash could no longer shake Han Fei's soul. In front of Han Fei, the girl seemed to see the result from Han Fei's expression. She stretched out her hand and squeezed in the void. The endless waves of fire receded like a tide and quickly disappeared without a trace. Who? Han Fei was sweating and panting. The Void Temple was indeed not to be underestimated. Any one of them could easily crush him, which was not something to be happy about. He heard the girl say, "Considering that you haven't reached the pinnacle of the sea expansion realm, and your divine soul is still passable, just barely. Now, answer my question." Han Fei didn't care about the girl's comment. Panting, he said, "Go ahead." The young girl. "If one day you need to sacrifice yourself to save all races, would you be willing?" "I'm not willing." The girl's face immediately darkened, and she said, "Why did you answer so quickly?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Hey, what does it have to do with me whether or not there are 10,000 races? You want me to sacrifice myself to save them? Why?" The girl stomped her feet. "Selfish. That's unacceptable." Han Fei sneered. "Let me give you an example. I can fight against the whole world for the person I love, but I won't hurt the person I love for the world. I don't have any righteousness. Everything must come from the heart." "Humph." The girl glanced at Han Fei coldly. "Just keep climbing." With that, the girl disappeared again. However, this time, when Han Fei looked at the last 1,000th step, he couldn't help but think that the first 1,000th step was a test of his body. The second 1,000th step was a test of the power of his divine soul. Relatively speaking, without the demon purification pot, he might not have been able to resist it. Obviously, the girl ran up to wait for him again. He didn't care about the third question. What he cared about was what this level was to test. His body and divine soul had been tested. According to the girl's personality, what else could she test? Han Fei couldn't help but want to communicate with the old turtle, but after he called out and there was no response, Han Fei knew that the old turtle had been blocked. As usual, Han Fei shook his head slightly. He didn't know what the next test was, so he didn't need to prepare for it. So, Han Fei grinned. How could I be fooled by a little girl? Then Han Fei quickly stepped up the steps and passed the 1,000th step in a hurry. Sure enough, when Han Fei stood on the last step, the incomparably huge bronze gate fell straight in front of him. It was so high and so wide that it seemed to be endless and magnificent. In front of the bronze gate, the girl was already waiting there like the previous 2 times, and the scorching fire-long knife next to her was stabbed diagonally into the ground. The girl said, "Well, fortunately, you were not fooled by me and came up soon. Otherwise, your points would have been deducted." Han Fei. Han Fei was speechless. "Is there a deduction for points?" Han Fei said, "Wait, did you give me points all the way here? What's the full score? How much did I deduct?" The girl said, "Anyway, your score is not high." Han Fei. The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. "What do you mean my score is not high? Isn't my journey perfect enough?" The young girl said, "This trial will depend on your comprehension." Han Fei had never thought about this kind of test. Understanding was hard to say. Although they were all cultivators, their brains were quite developed. But this kind of development was more reflected in memory, spatial ability, and so on. However, this had nothing to do with being smart and quick-witted, nor did it have much to do with comprehension. Comprehension and intelligence were mostly based on knowledge and experience. Only then did one's imagination come into play. So when the girl said this test, Han Fei's face turned serious, knowing that the real problem was coming. Han Fei said, "How long do I have?" The girl said, 7 days. "I won't disturb you in 7 days. But in these 7 days, you can't connect to the origin sea, nor can you leave here. You can only comprehend." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay, what's the question?" With a flip of her hand, the young lady tossed out 2 items. Thud, one of them hit the ground heavily, making a muffled sound and even forming airwaves. Han Fei looked at it and found it very familiar. Isn't this the gravity magnetic force? This thing can suppress the king crab for tens of thousands of years. Han Fei was tired of carrying it, and the other item turned out to be a red, beautiful, and gorgeous feather. The girl said, "Since you're on the path of body refinement, I'll let you comprehend a concept. Let me ask you, if these 2 items fall from the same position in the void, which one will land first?" Han Fei. Han Fei looked at the girl deeply. Are you sure this is the question? The girl nodded. I'm sure. Han Fei asked, Didn't I say I would teach you 3 moves and answer 3 questions? The girl said the third question comes first and the third move comes later. Han Fei asked, Do you think I look like a retard? The girl. She said impatiently, This is about the profound meaning of strength. If you comprehend it, your strength will probably rise to a higher level. The corner of Han Fei's mouth shivered, and his heart was full of disdain. But suddenly, he came to a sudden realization. He had always treated cultivation as cultivation, and it seemed that he had never thought about these problems. Sigh. Was the gravity experiment helpful to strength? In a normal world, of course not. However, was this a normal world? This was about the Great Tao. Space-time, everything could become the Great Tao, and everything could be cultivated. At this time, such a scientific experiment might become an epiphany. Han Fei said, Why don't I take your third attack first? The girl said, I told you to comprehend it, so comprehend it. If you can't even comprehend it, you are not qualified to take my third attack. Han Fei. After that, the girl sat cross-legged and began to rest with her eyes closed. Han Fei said, Well, the girl said impatiently, Comprehend it quickly. Han Fei was lost for words. Do I have to comprehend it? Of course they landed at the same time. The girl said, Huh. All of a sudden, the girl opened her eyes and looked at Han Fei in shock. Her first reaction was, Have you comprehended this before? The girl was speechless. That's impossible. Judging from Han Fei's performance in the battle, he obviously didn't know this. How could he give the answer so quickly? Han Fei shook his head. To be honest, if you didn't ask me, I wouldn't have thought of this. The girl pointed at the gravity and the feather and said, You just took a glance and comprehended it. Han Fei's lips curled. Do I need to comprehend it? I think you are insulting my intelligence. Hiss. The girl glared at Han Fei for a while and then looked back at the bronze gate. After dozens of seconds, she finally came back to herself. Well, take my last attack. Han Fei was shocked. It seemed that the hardest part was yet to come. The girl jumped up, grabbed the hilt of the knife, pulled up the raging fire broadsword, and threw the broadsword at Han Fei. Han Fei. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What does she mean? Is she looking down on me? Or does this move have a deeper meaning? Why did she throw the knife at me so lightly? Is this knife very heavy? Or is it very hot? Swish! Han Fei grabbed the handle of the knife, only to feel that his whole body was hot, his blood was boiling, and his chi and blood suddenly expanded. However, although this big knife was very heavy, it seemed to be a little lighter than the gravity and magnetic force. In Han Fei's eyes, information immediately emerged. Name Phoenix Feather Wild Knife. Introduction. It's made of the feathers, blood essence, claws, gravity, and void fire of the divine beast Phoenix. With a wind feather wild knife, it can make your chi and blood soar and increase your strength by another 10%. When fighting with the Phoenix Feather Wild Knife, your strength can be increased by 30%. Quality, mid-quality divine weapon, spirit attachment. None. Effect, agitation of chi and fire resistance. Recastable, unrefined. Note, when the phoenix feathers are spread, they cover the sun and the sky, like a catastrophe. Magnificent. When Han Fei realized what was going on, the girl snorted coldly. You're not bad. Bonus points for the third level. This knife is a gift. Han Fei. Chapter 2030. Dumbfounded, Han Fei held the mid-quality divine saber in shock. So, by taking 3 strikes from her, did she mean that the last strike would be given to him? A mid-quality divine weapon? Han Fei was dumbfounded. Was this saber the reward for passing the test of the Void Temple? What kind of people were these people from the Void Temple? Did they just throw divine weapons around? Seeing Han Fei's dumbfounded look, the girl in red snorted. How did you figure out the key at a glance? Han Fei almost blurted out that he had learned the iron ball experiment, where 2 balls fell at the same time, because there was gravity in this world. Of course, he wouldn't tell her the answer. Han Fei simply said casually, I figured it out. The two of them stared at each other for a moment, but the girl in red didn't intend to get to the bottom of it. He heard her say, "Follow me." The girl in red turned around and came to the bronze gate, holding a bronze token with the number 11. When the bronze token was pressed on the bronze door, there was a ka-ka-ka sound, and the huge bronze door slowly opened. Han Fei was surprised. "Are you not a projection?" The girl replied, "Of course not. I'm here just to wait for you. Now that you have passed the final test, you will be my junior brother from now on." Han Fei was overjoyed, thinking that the final test was a bit easy. Of course, it was just Han Fei's opinion. It was hard to say whether it was really simple or not. Not everybody could survive the girl's 2 strikes. There must be a lot of people who couldn't understand the gravity test. Han Fei actually had an epiphany. If he could create a vacuum battlefield or a domain, he would definitely become stronger. There was no doubt about that. The bronze gate slowly opened to a gap that could only allow 2 people to pass through. Han Fei followed the girl in red. This was the 3rd time that Han Fei had come to the Void Temple. From beginning to end, he only saw nothingness. Except for the girl in red, Han Fei hadn't seen the real appearance of anyone else. When Han Fei followed the girl in red into the gate, he seemed to have stepped on the horizon and stepped into a hazy mist. It was still the same mountain that he had come to before. Before Han Fei had time to look around, he heard many voices shouting, "Congratulations, junior brother!" The voices came one after another. Han Fei looked up, only to see that the huge eldest senior brother, who occupied half the sky, seemed to be looking at him. However, the two seemed to be separated by an endless void, so Han Fei couldn't see his face at all. Then, Han Fei heard someone laughing behind him. "Ha ha, what did I say? Little junior brother has finally become a member, hasn't he?" At the bottom of the mountain, in the waterfall pool, the laughter of a woman could be heard. A female voice said, "We also made a bet that junior brother would definitely be able to enter the sect." Voila! He saw a giant eagle circling in the sky. It flapped its wings and landed on eldest senior brother's knees. The eagle said in a crisp voice, "In less than 3,000 years, the Sky Temple has recruited another disciple. Congratulations." Han Fei looked back and saw the giant skeleton that was as tall as the mountain said, 11, you don't have to worry about the future assessments anymore." The girl in red who led Han Fei here said, "It's really tiring. But it's really hard to find a good place to recruit people in such a chaotic world." The girl in red looked at Han Fei. "Little junior brother, your first task after joining the sect is to choose suitable people to join the Sky Temple in the future. Of course, it's not that urgent. You can play for 10,000 years and recruit people in the future when you have the idea." A dragon flew over from the sky and said with a smile, "Little junior brother, don't listen to 11. Recruiting people is an opportunity. Just let nature take its course." Han Fei was dumbfounded to see the mysterious expert show up. He didn't know anything yet. Quiet, the eldest senior brother's gentle voice echoed in the sky, and the senior brothers and senior sisters that Han Fei didn't know at all also quieted down. The eldest senior brother said, 11, lead little junior brother into the sect." The girl in red bowed to the eldest senior brother. "Yes, eldest senior brother." The girl in red looked at Han Fei and said, 12, you should know that when you see eldest senior brother and the others, they're separated by the endless void, so you can't see their faces clearly. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Did I just become 12? I don't even have a name? Han Fei nodded stiffly. Of course, I already know that. As if sensing Han Fei's embarrassment, the girl in red said, "It's just a name. Before you come to the Sea Realm and see the world, when you meet your senior brothers and senior sisters, you can't see them, so you don't need to know their names. In the future, when you come to the Sea Realm and meet your senior brothers and senior sisters, it won't be too late to get to know them. Originally, there were a total of 11 people in the Sky Temple. After you come, there will be 12, so we can only call you little junior brother. When you recruit someone, you can become 12th senior brother." Han Fei thought to himself, "They still don't trust me. I'll just join the Sky Temple, so it's understandable that they don't trust me. Otherwise, they should at least tell each other their names." At this moment, the giant eagle said, "Little junior brother, don't think that we don't trust you. In fact, most people in the Sky Temple don't know each other, nor do we know their names. But if you have a chance to meet them someday, you will know them, and we won't hide anything from you." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Understood. Then shall we just call each other by numbers?" The girl in red smiled and said, "You can make up a name for yourself. Don't be too particular about it. I'll introduce you one by one. Eldest senior brother naturally doesn't need me to introduce you. Eldest senior brother is eldest senior brother, and eldest senior brother is how I address you." The girl in red pointed at the giant eagle on the eldest senior brother's knee and said, "This is second senior sister. You can call her senior sister Kagura. Although senior sister Kagura looks dignified, she has a good temper." Then the girl in red pointed at the big skeleton. "This is third senior brother. You can call him senior brother undead. He's not scary at all. He's one of my favorite senior brothers." The one fly in the sky, fourth senior brother Azure Dragon, is so annoying. He often scolds me. Cough, cough. Girl phone you. How can you slander your senior brother like this? Azure Dragon couldn't stand it anymore and shouted in a dignified voice. But the girl in red didn't take it seriously at all. She pointed at another mountain and said, "That's fifth senior brother, who calls himself Elder Tianwang. He's the most heroic and likes to drink. Let me tell you a secret. If you need treasures, you can find fifth senior brother." Han Fei immediately felt uncomfortable. "Are you sure you told me this in secret? Who the hell didn't hear it?" Then the girl in red waved at the lotus in the pool. Senior sister Green Lotus and senior sister Red Lotus ranked 6th and 7th respectively. After that, he saw Feng Yi turning around and looking around. A clear and cold voice shouted, "I'm here." Han Fei looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a thin figure on a tree on the cliff. Feng Yu said, "This is senior sister Dark Shadow. She ranks 8th. Feng Yu turned around and pointed at the bug who had chatted with Han Fei. "This is senior brother Six Gods. He ranks 9th and is from the insect clan. I don't know which clan he is from." Then Feng Yu shouted at the sky, "Senior brother Heavenly Thunder." Boom! A bolt of lightning streaked across the void, and in a flash, Feng Yu said, "This is senior brother Tian Lei, ranked 10th. In the end, Feng Yu pointed at herself. "Look, we've met before. This is my real appearance. I'm Feng Yu, ranked 11th. Come on, call me senior sister." The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Damn, I can't call her senior sister. He felt that this lass was like his own daughter, blabbering on and on. She's completely lost her previous ferocity. Seeing that Han Fei didn't speak, Feng Yu said, "By the way, the Void Temple has a tradition. After you change your name, there will be a greeting gift." Han Fei was refreshed. "There's a greeting gift?" Immediately, Han Fei said in a booming voice, "Greetings, senior sister 11th. Feng Yu clenched her fist and shook it. "I'm finally not the youngest. 12th junior brother, I've given you a greeting gift." "Huh?" Han Fei was stunned. Thinking of the Phoenix Feather Wild Saber, he thought to himself, "She must be rich to give me a mid-quality divine weapon." At this moment, the eldest senior brother said, "You have to give him a greeting gift, but don't spoil it. Don't let it affect junior brother's cultivation." Han Fei roared in his heart. "It won't affect him at all. I don't mind having too many divine weapons." At this moment, senior sister Kagura said, "Junior brother, have you decided what you want to call yourself?" Han Fei thought for a while. These people didn't seem to hide their race and characteristics. It seemed that there was no need for him to hide it. Han Fei said, "Human King. Senior brothers and senior sisters, you can call me Junior Brother Human King." Everyone, burp, the 5th senior brother burped and muttered, "Why do I want to slap him so much?" Chapter 2031. Speaking of which, Han Fei could get a gift when he was called a senior brother or a senior sister. He thought of the calabash that 5th senior brother gave him and the Phoenix Feather Wild Knife that Feng Yu gave him just now. Han Fei said, "Junior brother, nice to meet you. Eldest senior brother." "Huh?" The eldest senior brother replied with a gentle voice. He then casually tossed a star shell over from the boundless void. Han Fei glanced at it, only to find that it was packed with a star shell. Han Fei picked it up and scanned it with his senses. only to find that it contained a whole star shell's spiritual spring. Han Fei was shocked. Is eldest senior brother so stingy? He's giving me divine weapons, but you're giving me spiritual spring? Not that I'm bragging, but if the spiritual spring in my origin sea hadn't been drained by the calabash, there would have been a whole river of spiritual spring in my origin sea. However, Han Fei realized that the spiritual spring that eldest senior brother gave him was more than the part that was drained by him. Han Fei thought to himself, that's not bad. I don't know how long it would take if I were to do it myself. Junior brother, thank you. Eldest senior brother. Then, Han Fei said to the eagle, nice to meet you, second senior sister. Huh, not bad. You should stabilize yourself in the Pioneer Sea level and cultivate slowly. Then he saw a star shell thrown at him. Han Fei knew that it must be a popular star shell outside. Han Fei grabbed it and scanned it with his senses. Damn, 10 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei was lost for words. It seemed that second senior sister had inherited eldest senior brother's stinginess. In order not to spoil things through excessive enthusiasm, she gave him what she could. Of course, the amount of 10 billion top-grade spirit stones was just right for him. Although it couldn't make up for the resources that were swallowed by the demon purification pod, it was equivalent to 30% of the resources. In such a way, together with the spiritual spring that eldest senior brother gave him, and the essence of the earth veins that his origin sea and the demon purification pot didn't absorb, the quality of his origin sea could be restored to about 80%. Then, Han Fei called them one by one. Senior brother Spectre. He gave him 10,000 streams of chaotic energy. Senior brother Azure Dragon gave him 100 mother loads. Senior brother Heaven Desolate had already given him the calabash. Senior sister Green Lotus and senior sister Red Lotus gave him 100,000 seeds. Senior sister Dark Shadow was surprisingly generous. She gave him a piece of black-yellow soil, which made Han Fei very excited. Senior brother Lu Shun gave him an insect egg that was nourished in the chaos spring water, saying that it was for him to plow the land. Seeing that everyone had given enough, senior brother Heavenly Thunder didn't know what else to give, so he gave Han Fei a jade slip, which recorded his understanding of the lightning tribulation. It was obvious that his senior brothers had given him abundant resources from the Origin Sea. These resources could not be said to be a lot, but they greatly replenished his Origin Sea. Although Han Fei felt that there was still a big gap between the spiritual spring and the ultra-quality spiritual stones. However, in terms of replenishing his other resources, he could practically decorate his current Origin Sea to an almost perfect degree. Therefore, except for 5th Senior Brother's Calabash and Phoenix Feather's Broadsword, the actual resources Han Fei got from the Void Temple were not much, but not little either. After all, this was just a greeting gift. After taking the resources, Feng Yu said, "All right, next is the induction ceremony. Eldest Senior Brother, take me back." Eldest Senior Brother nodded imperceptibly. The endless void seemed to be penetrated by the sunlight, and then a huge hand pushed open the endless void, which was as wide as the sky. Feng Yu leaped into the air, crossed the heavy fog, and landed on Eldest Senior Brother's big hand, as if she was going to follow this hand through the endless void. Feng Yu said, "Little Junior Brother Human King, we will wait for you in the sea realm," as the big hand retracted, after more than 10 minutes. Feng Yu's voice sounded again on the skeleton of Senior Brother Undead. "I'm here again." Han Fei was still deeply shocked at this moment. God knows how far this eldest Senior Brother is from the chaotic vast sea. He can send people here and take them back. No one can come to the chaotic vast sea. Look at my eldest Senior Brother of the Void Temple. He can come and go freely. The guardian of the Martial Emperor City didn't even show up. Not to mention anything else. Even if Han Fei had a clear way to leave the chaotic vast sea with the fastest speed of the Golden Light Leap, it would not be as simple as eldest Senior Brother, who could reach an unreachable distance with one hand. What kind of power could measure him? The heaven opening state? Are you kidding me? If the heaven opening state was so strong, would the old turtle be reduced to this? Emperor? Han Fei thought to himself. Although he didn't know what realm an emperor was, he couldn't even guess the peak of the heaven opening state. However, Han Fei was sure that this eldest senior brother was definitely a venerable emperor, and not just an ordinary venerable emperor, but a very strong one. Otherwise, how could he enter and leave the chaotic vast sea so casually under the nose of other emperors? Han Fei even felt that Feng Yu and the others were at least at the heaven-opening realm. If not, how could they take out a divine weapon so easily? Before getting the green gourd, he had never heard of divine weapons at all, and the limit of his knowledge was sea-quelling bizarre treasures and human holy weapons. While Han Fei was still immersed in all kinds of conjectures, he heard eldest senior brother's gentle voice, as if the world was chanting, "Little junior brother, before the entrance ceremony, you must know some rules after entering the Void Gate. You can't kill innocent people and do whatever you want. But after entering the diabolism, you can't walk the evil path. All races are equal, and there is no distinction between them. To suppress the ominous, you must do your best. You must not expose your identity as a disciple of the Void Gate to outsiders, where you will only face endless pursuit." The so-called rules were actually not many, but it showed the bottom line of the Void Temple. In the end, eldest senior brother said, "The Void Temple has two old enemies. One is the Immortal Temple, and the other is the Temple of Time. The root of the enemy is the disagreement of ideology. Time is extreme, and immortal is stubborn. You have the great way of time. If you don't die on the way, you will definitely meet people from the Temple of Time in the future. You can distinguish right from wrong." Hearing this, Han Fei's heart suddenly became solemn. Sure enough, the three temples were opposed to each other. However, according to eldest senior brother, it seemed that the Immortal Temple and the Temple of Time were also enemies. They became enemies because of the disagreement of ideology. This reason was simply irrefutable. It was just that he did not know what sort of opinion the three god halls had that caused them to be hostile toward one another. Of course, this was not something Han Fei should consider. What Han Fei should consider was how to achieve the Pioneer Sea Realm. Although he didn't know what the Sea Realm looked like, Han Fei had a hunch that he was about to get in touch with it. And that was the ceiling of strength in the known world. Even eldest senior brother was there, which meant that there should be a lot of venerable emperors there. If there were gods, they would naturally be in the so-called Sea Realm. Therefore, Han Fei was very calm at the moment. He knew that he still had a long way to go. He couldn't think that he was invincible in the world just because he called himself the king of man. Even though he had 2 heavenly veins, the highest one was only ranked 800. This already told Han Fei that whether it was talent, spiritual heritage, or potential, he might not be the strongest. Therefore, he had to wait for the future. Eldest senior brother shouted softly, "Calm your mind." Next to him, Han Fei's senior brothers and sisters all stared at him without saying a word. It seemed that they attached great importance to this initiation ceremony. Han Fei's head buzzed when he heard eldest senior brother shout. Then, he seemed to see a wooden stick that seemed to pass through layers of the void. It descended on top of his head. Thought Han Fei was hit by the wooden stick. In an instant, flowing light overflowed and dazzled. Thousands of rainbows surrounded the void. In Han Fei's mind, a large number of complicated and mysterious Taoist patterns, talismans, or Taoist patterns, appeared. Han Fei didn't know what they were, but it seemed that these Taoist patterns had been imprinted in his mind. In addition to these Taoist patterns, Han Fei felt power. Black and yellow qi, chaotic qi, immortal qi, ferocious qi, evil qi, death qi, time qi, and all kinds of inexplicable powers that Han Fei didn't know about, as if they were trying to leave some impression on Han Fei. After feeling these powers, Han Fei's mind was still hazy. In the deepest part of these powers, Han Fei seemed to see darkness. In that darkness, there seemed to be a kind of power calling him. Han Fei didn't know where it was and who was calling him. He guessed that this might have something to do with the origin of the Void Temple. He wasn't even qualified to see eldest senior brother or even Feng Yu. It was naturally too early to talk about the origin of the Void Temple. Therefore, Han Fei didn't tell them about it. He just thought that this was something that all the people who had accepted the initiation ceremony of the Void Temple knew. When this imprint ended, eldest senior brother said, "With this imprint, you will be a real disciple of the Void Temple. This imprint can be used 3 times. In a life-and-death situation, or when you feel that you need help, you can choose to ask the Void Temple for help. Remember, you only have 3 chances. Chapter 2032. The mark in Han Fei's head represented the Void Temple. The so-called 3 chances could basically be said to be 3 death exemption medallions. Or, if he wanted to do something that he couldn't do, he could use this imprint. This was already a great opportunity. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Eldest senior brother, do we have regular gatherings in the Void Temple? How'd I get here?" The eldest senior brother's voice was unhurried. "When you need a meeting, I can open a gate for you through the mark in your head." The 5th senior brother said, "Little junior brother, don't ask eldest senior brother about such trifles. Senior brother, let me explain it to you." Gulp. Burp. The 5th senior brother gulped down a mouthful of wine. Han Fei could even smell it. He chuckled and said, "Generally speaking, the Void Temple has a small gathering every 10 years and a big gathering every 100 years. But if someone is in seclusion or it's inconvenient, he doesn't have to come. You can even start a gathering yourself." "Me?" The 5th senior brother said, "As long as you light up the mark in your head with the power of your soul, you could tell eldest senior brother the information in a short way. Under normal circumstances, eldest senior brother would inform us. As for whether we can come or not, it depends on what it is or whether we are free." Han Fei was surprised. This method was really amazing. Didn't it mean that he could contact his senior brothers and senior sisters scattered all over the world in a short time in this way? Although it didn't seem to be meaningful to him for the time being, it was really awesome. Han Fei cupped his hands. "Thank you for your advice, 5th senior brother. By the way, can I learn some basic skills after entering the Void Temple?" With that said, Han Fei looked at eldest senior brother. Last time he met eldest senior brother in private, the cultivation method he saw was called a basic cultivation method, but which cultivation method was ranked in the top 10 of the sea expansion list among the 10,000 races in the vast sea. The eldest senior brother seemed to understand what Han Fei meant. 2 glowing techniques appeared in the void. Seeing that the eldest senior brother released them, Han Fei was slightly relieved. It seemed that he didn't need to hide it from his senior brothers and senior sisters. Senior brother Lu Shun, who went to listen to the insect race, said in surprise, "These 2 sects? Junior brother, you're really radical." Senior brother Azure Dragon said, "The void body refinement technique is not easy to practice." Senior apprentice sister Kagura said, "The void heaven observation art is not bad. If you successfully cultivate these 2 arts, there will be very few people in the sea expansion realm who can beat you." Feng Yu said, "Big brother, why didn't you pass the first void technique to little brother? It's so powerful." Han Fei's ears pricked up. "The best void technique? What kind of spell is that?" However, the eldest senior brother said gently, "It's not that I don't want to pass it on, it's just that it's not suitable. The so-called ranking of cultivation techniques is just a man-made ranking. It's still unknown who's stronger and who's weaker when it's actually used." Han Fei secretly licked the corner of his mouth. He didn't think there was anything wrong with what eldest senior brother said. Indeed, suitability was the most important thing. Besides, he had the demon purification gourd. If it didn't work, he could push it away. How could it be accomplished overnight? This was already a great opportunity. Perhaps it could only be found in the Void Temple. Where else could it be found? Therefore, Han Fei didn't mind it at all. He immediately said, "Eldest senior brother, you're right. Suitability is the most important thing." Senior brother Azure Dragon said, "Little brother, you're right. No matter how powerful a cultivation technique is, it won't work if the person using it is not good enough. No matter how bad a cultivation technique is, it's still strong if the person using it is strong enough. After all, it still depends on the person." Seeing that Han Fei agreed, these 2 cultivation techniques were directly projected into Han Fei's head. They were Void Heaven Observation Art, Unrated, Introduction. The founding god of the Void Temple entered the Tao with his original appearance and left a mark to teach the future generations the Tao of the soul. The Void Heaven Observation Art is as powerful as the sky and can clearly understand the heavenly way. Integrate the soul and will into the sky and accept the tempering of the heavenly way in order to achieve the effect of soul refining. Deduction, not deductible effect. Compete with the Tao between heaven and earth. Understand the heavenly way and temper the soul. Note, to practice this art, one must be extremely resistant to pressure. Technique of void mortal refinement. Unranked. Introduction. The body refining art of the founding god of the void temple. It refines the body with the collapsing power of the endless void. During the refinement, one must constantly use and absorb the chaotic energy to polish the body and gradually replace the spiritual energy of the chaotic divine body. Deduction, not deductible effect. The body is indestructible, and the life is longer than the sky note. To practice this art, one must be careful not to enter the endless void by mistake. Although Han Fei hadn't tried it yet, from the description of these two arts, he could tell that these two arts didn't seem to be easy to practice. However, this effect, if understood literally, was obviously much stronger than the pure profound body. This was because the pure profound body still used spiritual energy, while the void physical refinement technique had already separated itself from spiritual energy. He wanted to create a body that only circulated primal chaos energy throughout his body. In fact, Han Fei didn't use much chaotic energy at the moment. In the venerable realm, chaotic energy was mostly used to open up the Sea of Origin. When he reached the Sea Expansion realm, his Sea of Origin hadn't been fully opened, so he had to use chaotic energy to fill and strengthen his Sea of Origin. Therefore, even though Han Fei had a lot of chaotic energy now, plus the chaotic energy he just absorbed, he still hesitated to upgrade the time chain, because the source of chaotic energy was either from killing kings or by chance. It would be too slow if he absorbed it slowly by himself. Once he overconsumed it now, the chaotic energy in his Sea of Origin wouldn't be able to keep up, which was not good for him to open the sky. However, what Han Fei still wanted was the 9th level of the void fishing art. The 9th level should be the last level of the void fishing art. Eldest senior brother once said that there was a void temple. As if knowing what Han Fei was thinking, eldest senior brother said leisurely, "The time is not right. It's still too early. When you open the sky in the future, the last level of the art will be given to you." Han Fei cupped his hands. "Thank you, eldest senior brother." At this time, eldest senior brother said slowly, "Little junior brother, the initiation ceremony has been completed. If you need to leave, you can leave first. If you want to communicate with me, you can." After eldest senior brother said that, his magnificent figure slowly disappeared. Senior sister Kagura spread her wings and flew high. She chuckled and said, "Recently, there is a rumor among the divine beasts that the Emperor Sparrow has been born. You who are out on adventures, just be careful." Han Fei frowned. What did she mean? Had the outside world already known that the Emperor Sparrow had been born? But according to senior sister Kagura, it seemed that no one knew that the Emperor Sparrow was his spiritual beast. Otherwise, she wouldn't have reminded them. Senior brother Azure Dragon said, "I've heard about it too. But aren't the prehistoric beasts quite noisy? It seems that someone is going to compete with the Emperor Sparrow." Senior sister Kagura said, "The Emperor Sparrow certainly doesn't dare to show up now, but when it grows up, it will be a bit ridiculous to compete with it." "Okay, that's all I have to say. I'm leaving." Senior brother Undead said, "Recently, the Undying Temple has been taking action frequently and intends to start a war." Junior brother Six Gods, "It seems that the insect clan is involved, right?" Bug next to Han Fei said, "Yes. The insect clan has been fighting fiercely with the sea demons recently. 5 or 6 heaven-opening realm cultivators have died. The Undying Temple is indeed behind this. I'll take care of this matter." Gulp. Burp. Fifth senior brother drank a mouthful of wine. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Little junior brother, don't listen to these messy things. Your top priority is to stabilize your cultivation, improve your strength, and strive to open the sky as soon as possible. Han Fei nodded. "Goodbye, fifth senior brother." Boom! A lightning mark appeared in the sky, and then a heavy voice sounded. It was senior brother Heavenly Thunder. He said, Phone you, you've been too high profile recently. Senior Marshal Brother, I heard that many people already bear grudges against you. You must be careful. Phone you said, thank you for reminding me, Senior Brother Heavenly Thunder. They're just a bunch of chickens and dogs. You don't have to worry about them. Soon, the senior brothers and sisters finished chatting and left this void one after another. Han Fei said goodbye to them one by one. He was speechless, but he seemed to have heard a lot of secrets. Damn it, the turmoil in the sea realm seems to be even greater than the chaotic ocean. How many heaven-opening realm cultivators have died in a war? Besides, that was the territory of 10,000 clans. Their discussion made Han Fei feel like 10,000 clans were fighting for hegemony. Shaking his head, Zhang Xian tossed aside these so-called miscellaneous information and left the Void Temple with a thought. He had gained a lot on this trip. However, although Han Fei also felt that this trip to the Imperial Palace was very dangerous, he always felt that the final test was actually not that difficult. When Han Fei walked out of the misty white light and took a closer look, there was no bronze gate. Instead, he was currently in a palace that was filled with an ancient and decaying aura. This palace was not so luxurious, but it contained a cold feeling. On the walls of this palace, there were colorful murals, which were very full, as if they were recording some kind of war. Han Fei saw one blurry figure after another, branded on the murals, each like a god. And directly opposite Han Fei, deep in the palace, there was a young man in a golden robe who slowly turned his head. Finally, you're here. Chapter 2033. This scene was very strange. It was as if someone was waiting for him. He had already been to the Void Temple. Who was this person? Han Fei guessed. This person seemed to be alive. Could he be the one he was thinking of? Han Fei said, "Are you Chu Hao?" The young man smiled. "It's me." Hiss. Han Fei was dumbfounded. "He's not dead." Han Fei took a breath. "You're still alive?" If the person in front of him was Chu Hao, the owner of this imperial palace, how could he still be alive now? One should know that according to the jade slip left behind by Chu Hao, he was already seriously injured back then. Moreover, because he had cultivated for 6 lives, he no longer had the chance to cultivate another reincarnation, so he gave the demon purification gourd away as an opportunity. If Chu Hao was still alive, why would he give the devil purification gourd away? Wouldn't it be better to keep him around? How serious was the injury that the demon purification pot couldn't solve? Han Fei immediately calmed down. "You can't be alive." The man nodded slightly. "I'm not alive, but I'm not dead either." Narrowing his eyes, Han Fei waited for the young man to continue. He said, "In a longevity realm, it's not easy to live or die. If it's just my physical body, it's already gone. In the end, there's still a spirit, just like the old turtle in your body. You can call it a remnant soul." Han Fei became even more vigilant when he heard that it was a remnant soul of a venerable emperor. If it was hostile, he would have to use the seal of the Void Temple immediately. The young man smiled. "Don't be nervous. If I could possess you, I would have done so long ago. I wouldn't have waited tens of thousands of years for you to appear." Han Fei, however, was not convinced. "Not necessarily. What if it's just someone else who isn't worthy of your possession? A venerable Emperor Master is willing to wait more than 100,000 years for an opportunity, such as waiting for me to control the devil refining gourd. I don't think there's any problem with that. What do you think?" The young man laughed. "You're already a disciple of the Void Temple. Why would you be afraid of me?" "It's hard to say." The young man shook his head slightly and didn't seem to want to explain to Han Fei anymore. He said, "You should have read the jade slip I left. Don't think you're invincible just because you have the demon purification pot." Inheriting the demon purification pot meant that you had to shoulder greater responsibilities. In the past, there were many gods, and even with the demon refining gourd in hand, they were still unable to suppress the ominous. Instead, the gods fell, and their blood spilled over the darkness. Do you think Ben Jun really wants it? Han Fei had made up his mind. No matter what the man said, he didn't believe that he would give up the demon purification pot. What bullsh*t about the fall of the gods? How could that scare him? A super expert who could become a venerable sovereign must have a strong heart and a great talent. When danger and the demon purification pot were placed in front of them at the same time, they would probably choose the demon purification pot. Perhaps the ominous might kill you, but the demon purification pot might make you a god. Before knowing Chu Hao's real intention, Han Fei would never let his guard down. Seeing that Han Fei was unusually vigilant, Chu Hao naturally did not deliberately explain. He said, "The reason why I gave the demon purification gourd away was because of the demon purification gourd. There are two main reasons. One is that I'm indeed almost dead and can no longer use this thing. The gods gave it to me, and I will choose a successor to teach it to. The one who controls the demon purification pot, whether you like it or not, will eventually bear the responsibility of facing the ominous, which you can't escape from. Secondly, this monarch's current state can't be considered as a complete divine soul. My injuries can still be healed, but I lack a spiritual treasure. I hope you can find it. For this, I can provide you with information about the other vines in the demon purification pot. Actually, if you can get what I need, I might not be your match at that time. Think about it yourself. What do you think?" Han Fei thought, "That's reasonable. This man was quite badly injured. That should be right." As he said, if he just wanted to help him find some treasure, it didn't seem difficult to restore his soul and rebuild his body. At that time, he would still be a venerable sovereign. Although he was not a god, he would still be extremely powerful. Just like what Chu Hao had said, if he could get his hands on that thing, he would be able to save Chu Hao, who was so badly injured. The thing was probably not something that ordinary people could get their hands on. If he could get it, his strength would definitely be at the Pioneer Sea realm. Besides, even if he got that treasure, he could come back and give it to him when he was strong enough. Therefore, Han Fei immediately accepted this explanation. He asked, "What ultimate treasure?" Chu Hao said lightly, "The Heavenly Clan, the Holy Spirit Spring, at least 100 caddies." "The Heavenly Clan?" Chu Hao said, "The vast Sea Clan. As you become stronger and stronger, you will eventually know it. But I remind you that ordinary Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators don't go to the Heavenly Clan because they can't get it even if they go there." The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. "Do you mean that I will go there after I become an immortal?" Chu Hao said, "That's not necessarily impossible, as long as the Sea Realm can still hold on until then." Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, "What do you mean?" Chu Hao said leisurely, "In the depths of chaos, darkness comes and ominous things invade. Although it has been suppressed many times, how long can this place stop it? Maybe 100,000 years, maybe 1,000,000 years, but the darkness will come eventually." Han Fei frowned slightly. Whatever. Anyway, he wouldn't care about these things when he was powerless. He said, "Where are the other small vines of the demon purification pot?" Chu Hao said, "There are many people who hunted me, but as I guessed, those who can get the small vines must have one. The Heavenly Clan must have one, the Savage Beast Clan must have one, and I'm not sure about the last one, because there were too many venerable emperors who hunted me." Han Fei asked, "Did the 3 divine temples participate?" Chu Hao shook his head. "No. With the strength of the 3 divine temples, they don't necessarily need the demon purification pot." Han Fei asked again, "Does the Void Temple know that the demon purification pot is with me?" Chu Hao continued to shake his head. "I don't know. The Void Temple may be very strong, but they're not powerful enough to monitor the world. When human beings came out of this place, I sensed the shadow of the Void Temple and built the Imperial Palace here. In the name of inheritance, they built the Imperial Palace and the Void Temple's double secret realms. They may know, but they won't pay attention to me." Han Fei believed Chu Hao's words. Looking at the personalities of the Void Temple's senior brothers and sisters, they were all very busy. Whether they were strong or not didn't matter for now. For example, the Deathless Temple controlled the war between the Zur clan and the Sea Demons. 5 or 6 heaven-opening stage cultivators were killed, but Senior Brother's 6 gods casually said that he would deal with it. It was not an exaggeration to say that these people were low-key and arrogant. A venerable emperor who is almost dead shouldn't be a problem in their eyes. Otherwise, if their eldest senior brother casually stretched out his hand, This guy wouldn't be able to resist him. Han Fei said, "Okay, that's a deal. Heavenly Clan, Holy Spirit Spring Water. I will find it for you, but I don't know when." Han Fei guessed that Chu Hao might not know where the last small vine was. Otherwise, who would save him if he told him everything? And Chu Hao obviously knew that Han Fei had the nautical globe. Since he told Han Fei so frankly, he must be sure that the nautical globe couldn't find the small vine at all. Those who could become venerable emperors were certainly not ordinary people. In essence, Han Fei and Chu Hao's fate should be similar. Chu Hao got the demon purification pot, so he was hunted by the 9th heaven and 10th hell and ended up in this situation. Han Fei had tasted the feeling of being hunted as early as when he fought for the sea-quelling painting and got the sea token. A group of strong masters chased you and didn't even give you a chance to breathe. It might not be a bad thing to form a bond with Chu Hao because of this. Seeing that Han Fei agreed, Chu Hao said with a smile, "That's a deal. You've got a lot of opportunities in the Imperial Palace. You've also successfully entered the Void Temple. There should be nothing else you need here, right?" "Yes." Han Fei thought to himself, "What do you mean? Do you want to get rid of me so easily? There are so many treasures on the tree, but you don't want to give me any of them? Isn't this a bit too much? I've just reached the sea opening stage, and the Origin Sea needs a lot of resources. There are so many treasures in the Imperial Palace. Are you going to keep them for yourself?" Chu Hao, standing in front of the mural, Chu Hao said leisurely, "It's true that I'm waiting for you, and it's true that I'm looking for a successor. Why don't you be my successor? If you want, I can give you all of them." Han Fei said, "That's impossible. I'm already a member of the Void Temple. However, if you are willing to teach me, I can also help you develop it." Chu Hao said, "If you learn my way, you are very likely to be recognized. In the Sea Realm, it will only cause you trouble." Han Fei said, "How about this? I just need some basic resources. For example, the mystic yellow soil, the ultra-quality spiritual stones, the mystic crystals in the mineral veins, the spiritual spring, the spiritual heritage, the herb garden." Han Fei counted the resources that could be added to the Origin Sea with his fingers, without any nervousness or fear of facing an imperial emperor. Because Han Fei knew that this person was not a threat to him. Once he was, this person would die. Eldest senior brother's hand was no joke. Hearing Han Fei listing the names, as if he were counting his family treasures, Chu Hao was speechless. "Why don't you let me fill up your Origin Sea?" Han Fei asked, "Can I?" Chu Hao, seeing that Chu Hao didn't speak, Han Fei said again, "Look at this place, it's a remote place. The resources here are definitely not as abundant as in the Sea Realm. Prepare some resources for me. Helping me is also helping you." In the end, Chu Hao compromised. "One person can get 3 spiritual treasures on the tree. I'll give you 10. Don't be greedy. Many things are useless to you." Han Fei didn't care and said, "I have a few brothers and friends. The safety of these people." Chapter 2034. When he asked a venerable emperor how many resources he had, Han Fei asked for 4 pieces of black-yellow soil, 100 medicine garden, more than 300 spiritual veins, more than 500 mineral veins, 50 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, and a spiritual spring. Most importantly, Han Fei asked for 100,000 ownerless souls, which were basically free meat pies. Chu Hao said, "The chaotic ocean sea has been demanding for more than 100,000 years, and I've consumed a lot of resources. Now I only have less than 50% left. If I want to rebuild my true body, I need an astronomical figure." Before Chu Hao finished, Han Fei said, "Don't brag. What I want is nothing more than a drizzle to the Imperial Emperor. I know how much I need at the moment. To be honest, the resources I want are only enough for me to expand an 80,000-kilometer Origin Sea. If I didn't want to take resources from others for free, I would have asked for twice as much from you." Chu Hao said, "You're quite self-aware." Han Fei asked, "By the way, the Origin Sea of those people I killed belongs to me, right?" Chu Hao nodded. "Of course." Han Fei asked, "Is that hand of yours chasing me?" Chu Hao said, "I changed it to another place. I chased you to force you into the Eternal Thunder Prison." Han Fei thought to himself, "Thank you so much. One day later, Han Fei, who had reached an agreement with Chu Hao, successfully plundered the origin sea of 9 people. He gained as many as 11 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, plus various other resources, which could help him expand an area of less than 90,000 kilometers of the origin sea. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't know how long it would take for a king like him to collect all the resources he needed without his luck. After following Chu Hao through the back door and protecting Xia Xiaochan and the others, Han Fei entered his origin sea unscrupulously, because at this moment, the imperial palace no longer restricted him. In the origin sea, the first thing Han Fei did was to crazily consume resources to expand the origin sea. Now, Han Fei's origin sea had reached 60,000 kilometers, only a little bit away. He wanted to expand the origin sea to 100,000 kilometers in one fell swoop. In order to make up for the previous consumption, it only took Han Fei 3 days to consume nearly 30% of the countless resources he had obtained. Why did he consume 30%? Because his source sea had already been replenished with a lot of resources. Later, from the source sea of his senior brothers and senior sisters, Chu Hao and the fallen king, he obtained about 80 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones in total. 30% was 24 billion origin stones, just enough to complete his current origin sea. Senior brother Undead had given him 10,000 strands of chaotic chi, and he had obtained more than 33,800 strands of chaotic chi from the fallen monarchs. In total, he had a staggering 116,196 strands of chaotic chi. This meant that the amount of chaotic chi he had stored had almost doubled. With so much chaotic chi, Han Fei knew that it was time for him to be extravagant. Therefore, he waved his hand, and 10,000 streams of chaotic energy were absorbed into the demon purification pot. The time chain began to level up. The difficulty of advancing this time was obviously much higher than the previous time. It took him an entire day and night to barely complete the advancement. With a thought in Han Fei's mind, the effect of the 64 times time acceleration made him fall into ecstasy. He once heard that 1 day in heaven was equivalent to 1 year in the human world. Although his source sea had not reached such an exaggerated level, it was already amazing. 1 year in the outside world was equivalent to 60 years in the source sea. How abnormal! No wonder the Temple of Time could be listed as one of the 3 divine temples. He didn't know if the 3 divine temples had such a terrifying time acceleration. If they did, he didn't know how many strong masters would be born there. Of course, for Han Fei's current situation, time alone was not enough. He had to have enough resources for his cultivation. How many resources would he have to consume in the past 100 years? 3 years later. It had been 3 years since the Imperial Palace was opened. According to Han Fei's understanding, there were dozens of dangerous places in the underground palace. In the past 3 years, countless strong masters had died. On this day, in a maze with towering walls that could even be combined, 2 figures, fighting fiercely, escaped the maze. The girl in front vomited blood while running. All of a sudden, a purple shield of light appeared behind the young girl. Bam! The moment the purple light shield appeared, a triangular spiral appeared between the eyebrows of the strong master chasing after her, which rotated and crushed the purple light shield into pieces. Puff! A fleshy claw flew into the sky, was pinched by a big hand, and was instantly crushed. On the girl's shoulder, there was a starfish with only 2 claws left, who was basically in a coma at this moment. These 2 people were none other than Xia Xiaochan and the hexagon starfish. Xia Xiaochan shouted, "Big starfish, hold on. Don't attack anymore." The hexagon starfish said in a sobbing tone, "I can't attack anymore. If I attack again, I'll be finished." Behind the 2 of them, the black-clothed king snorted coldly. "Xia Xiaochan, after hiding in the maze with me for 3 years, I finally meet you again. This time, you can no longer escape from me." Cicada, what responded to this black-clothed man was the cry of a silkworm. The blades of light and shadow all over the sky intertwined and rushed to the man. Every slash had the strength of someone who had just entered the sea expansion realm, but none of them could break the black-clothed man's defense. Xia Xiaochan, on the other hand, moved at an incredible speed, as fast as light and shadow jumping in a zigzag mirror. Burst speed, divine walk. The triangle between the black-clothed man's eyebrows flickered more and more, and his speed also reached the fastest. He chased after Xia Xiaochan and the shadow of the heavenly cicada, not much slower. Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but bleed from her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. She couldn't resist, and her speed was getting slower and slower. The middle-aged man said, "Last time, it took you 5 full-strength blows from Han Fei to escape. I'd like to see how many full-strength blows Han Fei gave you. I can't let you escape from me." Puff! Bam! Xia Xiaochan slammed into the wall of the maze. It was not that she was not strong enough, but that this person from Investiture Heaven was too strong. Although before coming, Han Fei had considered that people from Investiture Heaven might attack the Imperial Palace. So he gave Xia Xiaochan 5 full-strength blows at once. However, this person's strength was completely beyond Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei's expectations. This person could be said to have almost reached the limit of the Pioneer Sea realm, especially after he performed the so-called God's Arrival. After the battle broke out, he could even resist Han Fei's full-strength blow. It seemed that the only purpose of the Investiture Heaven's existence was to kill Xia Xiaochan. At this moment, the void was blocked, and the voice from the black-clothed man seemed to be specially designed to restrain Xia Xiaochan. The black-clothed man shouted, "In the end, you still have to die." Therefore, the moment Xia Xiaochan was injured, this person launched a fatal attack, in case anything unexpected happened. A silver chain was about to smash Xia Xiaochan. When the hexagon starfish was about to release the last hexagon shield, a phantom appeared in front of Xia Xiaochan. This phantom was not Han Fei, but a woman in armor holding a golden trident. Who else could it be but Xia Hongzhu, Xia Xiaochan's mother? Bam! The silver chain was knocked to the ground, and Xia Hongzhu snorted coldly. "The infamily is really despicable. How dare you use the soul-destroying sound to deal with your own daughter? Damn it!" The black-clothed man who was knocked back looked horrified, but then he smiled and said, "It turns out that the War Queen has really been resurrected. Unfortunately, it's just a projection. What could it do to me?" A triangular divine seal appeared behind the black-clothed man, and his strength soared crazily. He even crushed 3 jade slips in his hand, and 3 figures of Huang Jingyuan of the Investiture Heaven appeared in a row. The black-clothed man said, "I know you've been resurrected, and I've been waiting for this moment. Today, let's see if you can break through these 3 projections of the Emperor and stop me." The 3 figures of Huang Jingyuan, after sensing the situation, suddenly took action. The 3 of them launched a joint attack, and 3 triangular divine seals appeared, saying in unison, "3 elements God, sealing seal, seal." Xia Hongzhu frowned. The 3 of them couldn't stop her, but they could trap her for a while. And that was exactly what Xia Xiaochan needed. Xia Hongzhu said, "Xiaochan, can you hold on for 3 seconds?" Xia Xiaochan gritted her teeth. She had just entered the Pioneer Sea realm. How could she hold on when faced with a king who was almost at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm? If she still had a full-strength strike, she might be able to hold on, but the point was that she had used all of them last time. Xia Xiaochan took out a 5th-grade Dao pattern pill and a high-quality, sea-quelling bizarre treasure, trying to hold on. Humph! Although they are good, you're too weak. Kill! Taking advantage of the moment when Xia Hongzhu was trapped, the black-clothed man burst out with countless sword currents from his body. His strength had reached the heaven-opening realm. Xia Hongzhu rose up and gathered all her strength to attack the God-sealing seal. Unfortunately, Xia Hongzhu was just a soul after all, and he hadn't recovered from his injuries. With a series of ka-ka-ka sounds, 2 of Huang Jingyuan's 3 great projections were destroyed, but there was still one that was still standing strong. At this time, Xia Hongzhu had no time to launch a second attack. The 6 big eyes of the hexagon starfish rolled crazily and muttered, "It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. I'm going to die." Xia Xiaochan didn't give up. Holding the big black umbrella in front of her, she shouted, "Even if I die, Han Fei will slaughter the infamily. Let's see how long you can be complacent. Bam!" rumble, just when Xia Xiaochan thought that she couldn't hold on anymore, a gentle voice suddenly sounded in her ears. It was so familiar and gave her a sense of security. "Sorry, I'm late. God's investiture heaven, prepare to be destroyed." Xia Hongzhu looked sideways, only to see immortal spiritual energy and ferocious energy intertwined, and a beam of light burst out at an extreme speed. The black-clothed man didn't block the immortal killing intent or the ultimate blade. He exclaimed, "How did you find this place so quickly?" But his eyes blurred, and one of his feet was picked up by Han Fei. Bam! 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 This person was crushed by Han Fei and smashed into a pulp in the blink of an eye. Han Fei said indifferently, "Because I went through the back door." Chapter 2035. Even Huang Jingyuan didn't expect Han Fei to be so strong. In his opinion, and Ming was a hidden trump card of the investiture heaven. He was a member of the family who came to the investiture heaven through the god's arrival technique. His strength had reached the peak of the sea expansion realm, and his pure power had reached 350,000 waves. When he activated the god's arrival technique, his strength was doubled. With the ultra-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure, it would be difficult for even a heaven-opening realm cultivator to take him down. But to Huang Jingyuan's and Xia Hongzhu's surprise, Han Fei smashed in Ming's full-strength blow with one hand, and with a backhand move, he instantly injured Ming with a terrifying power that could only be unleashed by a heaven-opening realm cultivator. Then, Ming was captured by Han Fei before he even had a chance to resist. Xia Hongzhu had only seen Han Fei's incarnation. At that time, Han Fei's bragging was a bit exaggerated in her eyes. She just wanted to verify Han Fei's character through time. But at this moment, Xia Hongzhu remembered that Han Fei said that he was invincible in every realm. This might be true. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan laughed so hard that her eyes turned red, and she almost couldn't hold back her tears. Sure enough, at the critical moment, her man was the most reliable. The hexagon starfish laughed even more when he saw Han Fei. "Ha! Han Fei is here. I don't have to die. Han Fei, help." Starfish was dying, and his claws were almost broken. "Give me the God's Awakening technique." This time, Han Fei didn't attack the hexagon starfish. This guy looked quite miserable, with only two claws clinging to Xia Xiaochan's shoulder. When the healing divine light descended, Xia Xiaochan and the hexagon starfish couldn't help but stretch their bodies at the same time. The hexagon starfish's tentacles were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xia Xiaochan was only injured by the soul-destroying sound. Her soul was slightly injured, but her internal injuries didn't affect her too much. Even so, a 7th-grade soul-suppressing pill flew to Xia Xiaochan. This was Han Fei's last 7th-grade soul-suppressing pill. If he wanted more, he would have to go to the Medicine King Heaven or fish in the time tunnel. At this moment, Han Fei pinched Ming with one hand and looked at Xia Hongzhu. At this moment, Xia Hongzhu happened to break Huang Jingyuan's full-strength blow with one halberd. From now on, Xia Xiaochan was safe. Xia Hongzhu only took a glance at Han Fei, and the phantom retreated into Xia Xiaochan's body. Unlike Huang Jingyuan and the others, Xia Hongzhu left a soul mark on Xia Xiaochan to protect her secretly. Han Fei came to Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan in one step, slightly relieved, and then asked, "Where's my full-strength strike?" Just when Xia Xiaochan felt that the healing effect was stabilizing, she saw that Han Fei was already close to her. She pouted slightly and said, "I used it. This man is too strong." Han Fei frowned slightly. He crushed this person, broke his body, and captured his soul. Xia Xiaochan's eyes turned cold. "This person is from the family. I don't know how he came to the Godbane heaven. Because of this person's pursuit, I had no choice but to play hide-and-seek with him in this maze for the past few years. I didn't even get many fortuitous opportunities." Han Fei was speechless. Just be content. This is a powerhouse who has reached the peak of the sea expansion realm. It's already good enough to survive his attacks. What fortuitous encounter. Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little scared. Fortunately, Xia Xiaochan was fast and had a lot of skills, so she managed to dodge. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Just now, Chu Hao informed him and opened a back door for him. Otherwise, he might not have been able to make it here in time. Han Fei couldn't help but be annoyed. The Godbane Heaven and Ian family might not know that they were already on Han Fei's death list, even higher than the Grand Pure Wuji, the 100 Demons, and the Undersea Humans. Han Fei said, "In family, I like to see what's so arrogant about the In family." Han Fei directly used the soul-searching technique to search this person's memory. However, as soon as Han Fei's consciousness arrived, before he had time to search this person's memory, he heard a cold snort, which seemed to come from the endless void. Pooh! Han Fei suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood, and his eyes, nose, and mouth were bleeding. He was forcibly shaken out of the man in black's memory. Xia Xiaochan's face changed greatly. "Are you okay?" Cough, cough. Han Fei wiped the corner of his mouth, opened his mouth, and swallowed the essence blood. He shook his head slightly. "I'm fine." This person's memory and sea of consciousness may have been tampered with by an immortal-level powerhouse. Xia Xiaochan couldn't help exclaiming, "Immortal level? An emperor?" Han Fei nodded slightly, thinking of his eldest senior brother's means, and judging from the voice just now, it shouldn't be the voice of this man in black. If this voice wasn't imprinted in advance, the person who spoke might still be in a very distant place. Then, it could only be an emperor who spoke. At this time, the soul of the man in Han Fei's hand was melting, as if it was corroded by some kind of power, and he began to die. Han Fei couldn't help but narrow his eyes. "Girl, we can take our time to avenge the In family, and the investiture of God's heaven can be eliminated first." Okay. In a palace far away in the outer domain, on a throne, a middle-aged man snorted coldly, and his eyes seemed to see through the void, looking at an extremely distant place. "Xia Hongzhu, I look forward to the day when you return." On this side, the hexagon starfish's claws had just grown, and it clawed from Xia Xiaochan to Han Fei. In the past, the hexagon starfish liked to stay on Xia Xiaochan's shoulder, because although Xia Xiaochan was fierce, she wouldn't really hit it. But Han Fei would. This guy was simply inhuman when he hit the starfish. However, this place was too dangerous. As long as they didn't leave the Imperial Palace, it didn't want to be separated from Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan sighed. "Do I still have time to look for opportunities now?" Han Fei shook his head. "Maybe forget it. Although there are many opportunities in the Imperial Palace, it doesn't mean that there are fewer opportunities outside. The investiture of God's heaven, the Grand Purity Palace, the Wuji Heaven, the 100 Demons clan, the Seabed Human clan, they're all waiting for us to settle accounts, and a huge amount of resources are waiting for us. At least for your current realm, you can get far more benefit from this place than from this place." Xia Xiaochan stamped her feet. "But I've spent all my time here. So far, I haven't found anything good in this damn maze." Suddenly, Xia Xiaochan looked at the bottom of her feet. It seemed that a mechanism had been triggered, and the maze here began to change. The walls of the maze, which were like rock walls, were intertwined. Immediately, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan found a bronze statue stuck in the rock wall. In the hand of this statue, there was a piece of yellow soil. Han Fei's eyes widened. Black-yellow soil? Is Chu Hao's compensation so casual? Han Fei looked at the void and thought to himself, "Chu Hao is really stingy. I asked you to take care of my people, especially Xia Xiaochan, but this is how you take care of her? Just give her a piece of black-yellow soil in the end." Xia Xiaochan was dumbfounded. She had wandered in this maze for 3 years without finding anything, but Han Fei just came here and stomped his foot, and there was a treasure. Xia Xiaochan couldn't help looking at Han Fei suspiciously. "Did you put this here?" Han Fei shrugged. "I certainly didn't do it. You see, I just found you." Xia Xiaochan was skeptical. "Then what is this?" "A stone. It looks like a piece of soil." Han Fei couldn't help but explain to Xia Xiaochan. "This is called black-yellow soil, a treasure used to consolidate and strengthen the Origin Sea. This piece was extremely hard to find in the entire chaotic Azure Sea. Such a large piece, not to brag, can at least improve the strength of the Origin Sea by a level." Xia Xiaochan immediately glared at him. You still say it's not yours? No wonder I haven't found a treasure in 3 years. Why did it come out so easily? So you have a lot of treasures. Are you trying to show me? Han Fei was speechless. You've wronged a good person this time. This thing really wasn't put here by us. Otherwise, why didn't I just give it to you? What's mine and what's yours, isn't it the same? Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Chu Hao's treasure is too low. How the F***CK can I explain it to him? Could it be that I'm already familiar with the Emperor here? Finally, Xia Xiaochan still picked up the black-yellow soil. Fine, it's your gift. I'm just comforting myself. It's not easy to come to the Imperial Palace. I can't risk my life and get no treasures. How shameful it will be. Xia Xiaochan asked, how long until we go out? Han Fei replied, only 3 days left. 3 days later, outside the Imperial Palace, in the 36 black heavens, only half of the big ships of the families were still there, or several families shared a ship and stayed here. The reason was that almost all the people who went in were dead. What were they waiting here for? Waiting for others to come out and show off their treasures? Of course, some people had ulterior motives. They left early in the morning just to prepare for hunting, including many kings. Swish! When a figure appeared from a mist, the various forces immediately perked up. Some people fell, and naturally some people rose. In the first half, everyone died in the Imperial Palace, and the second half was now. Chapter 2036. Outside the Imperial Palace, when the first person appeared, it meant that everyone had already come out. No wonder the people waiting outside were excited. Swish! Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan appeared at the edge of the sea area of the Imperial Palace at the same time. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder. Didn't they say that the location was random? Why did Xia Xiaochan and I appear together? Could it be that the people who were together in the Imperial Palace were also together when they were sent out of the Imperial Palace? The sea breeze whistled, and the surrounding mist began to dissipate, which would shrink back to a smaller area. In a short time, this place would become a dangerous place and even fade out of the sight of people in the chaotic ocean. Ordinary people might not be able to find it at all. Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but be surprised. Why are we together? Han Fei shook his head. I don't know, but it saved me a lot of trouble. Let's go find the 3 of them first. For Han Fei, this trip to the Imperial Palace was a huge harvest, but in fact, it was mainly because of the demon purification pot, which had a lot to do with the secrets behind the Imperial Palace. If he didn't have the demon purification pot, he might be lost in various dangerous places like most people on this trip. Because Chu Hao would never give you a chance to get in touch with the core of the Imperial Palace unless you got the demon purification pot. For example, Chu Hao once showed him that Baiyu of the Martial Emperor's city was indeed the first person to leave the bronze tree. However, he was stuck on a river of white bones and had been spinning in it, unable to move forward. And he was seen through by Chu Hao, and he intended to uproot the entire bronze tree. So he was directly sent to the test checkpoint of the Void Temple by Chu Hao. Even a character like Baiyu could only wander in the dangerous places of the Imperial Palace. Luo Xiaobai and the others, even with his help, would not be any better. Of course, there should be a lot of experience. Han Fei held the nautical panorama in his hand and quickly turned it. Because the scope of the sea area was not very large, only about a radius of 3 million kilometers, it was very fast to find people, especially when Han Fei had the nautical panorama. As soon as Luo Xiaobai appeared on the sea, she looked around and directly held a jade slip in her hand. It was a communication slip, and she was about to take the initiative to contact Han Fei. Swish, however, before Luo Xiaobai started to look for them, she saw a golden flash in front of her, and Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan appeared in front of her. Luo Xiaobai, you guys so fast. Let's find someone first. The mist is shrinking and the heaven-opening state may attack at any time. Luo Xiaobai nodded. But this time, Han Fei didn't even use the navigator. Within 1 million kilometers, he saw that Lurin Quang was fighting the 3 sea demons. After fusing with a deep blue roar, Lurin Quang looked like a monster in the sea. He was more than 20 meters tall, with arms like claws and a weird turtle shell on his back. The sea demons that had survived to this point were certainly not weak, so Lurin Quang failed to kill them. But he only heard him cursing, "Bastards, don't run if you have the ability. My brother will be here soon." However, a shark on the opposite side was blowing a conch. "Umph. Let's see if your brothers or the 100 demons arrive first." Into the Arch Palace, they could still compete with their strength. But as soon as they went outside, they would compete with their background. Just as the shark shouted, a golden light flashed, and Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, and Xia Xiaochan had arrived. Luren Kuang didn't expect Han Fei to come so quickly. Seeing that Han Fei had found Xia Xiaochan and Luo Xiaobai, he couldn't help but laugh. "See, my brothers are here. Where are your family's strong masters?" The three of them changed their faces drastically, and a conch shouted, "Oh no, it's Han Fei." At that moment, Han Fei slapped down. The three of them didn't even have a chance to run. Their bodies couldn't even move, and they were slapped to death by Han Fei. Han Fei casually threw 7 or 8 sun moon shells to Luren Kuang. Han Fei said, "Return to your original body. Don't waste time. Let's find Zhang Xuanyu." Han Fei knew that in less than 2 minutes, the 100 Demon Clan strong masters would arrive. Even if they were not sure Palong who was in the heaven opening state, they would at least be in the Pioneer Sea state. Although Han Fei was no longer afraid of any Pioneer Sea state cultivators, it would still take him a little time to kill one. And the moment they came out of the Imperial Palace was the moment when they were most likely to die. He had to find Zhang Xuanyu first, and then deal with other things. As soon as Luren Kuang returned to his original body, before he had time to speak, he was enveloped by Han Fei's power and disappeared. After the few of them disappeared, a giant octopus appeared in the blink of an eye. This octopus grabbed a few soul fragments from the void, and its eyes were cold. "Who is it? Why did you attack the 100 Demon Clan so soon?" On the other side, Zhang Xuanyu, Jian Hui, and Mushui Sisi somehow got together. And not only the three of them, but there were also 2 mermaids from the royal family with them. One of them was an acquaintance. It was by Muling, who was chasing Xia Xiaochan. At this moment, the 5 of them surrounded the 3 seafloor humans. Zhang Xuanyu said, "I've found that the opportunities in the Imperial Palace are really hard to get. If you want to get resources quickly, you have to rely on hunting. Let's make it clear that the resources on the 3 of them will belong to the king, who comes first." But soon after, the few of them felt a terrifying pressure descend upon them. Jian Hui's face darkened. "It's a king." It turned out that before they saw who was coming, the other party's attack had already arrived. It was a stone dragon as big as a mountain rushing straight here. Mushui Sisi said, "Not good. It's Pang Jia, the 100 Demon Clan. This is the great stone dragon technique. Run." Zhang Xuanyu said, "Don't panic. Let's hold him together." Jian Hui, block him. Jian Hui looked sideways. "How can I block him?" Although they said so, how could they escape the attack of a Pioneer Sea State powerhouse? Jian Hui spat out a small, white sword from his mouth, and the pure sword intent that had been accumulated for a long time burst out. Pang Jia was also surprised. He was lucky to survive this time because Han Fei had disappeared. He was more willing to believe that Han Fei had died in the Imperial Palace. Originally, after coming out, Pang Jia planned to find his own camp as soon as possible. Because he had obtained 3 rare treasures, he felt that he might have a chance to open the sky, so he had to protect himself. However, after coming out, he sensed and immediately saw Jian Hui, Mushui Sisi, Zhang Xuanyu, and Bai Muling. He knew the identity of each of these people, although they were only half-king realm cultivators. But any one of them had the possibility of opening the sky. For example, Jian Hui, he felt that he was the most likely one to open the sky. Anyway, it would be easy to kill these people, so he had to hurry up and kill them before the Pioneer Sea State arrived on the battlefield. It wouldn't delay things, and in terms of long-term benefits, it would be beneficial to the 100 Demon Clan. Facing Jian Hui's sword, Pang Jia snorted coldly. "You're just a half-king. Do you really think you can compare to a king with a sword?" Pang Jia stretched out his hand and easily grabbed the sword with just his physical body. Bam! In a flash, the sword shattered. It couldn't even hurt Pang Jia's palm, and the latter flipped his hand and shook the sea with a turtle shell. Jian Hui and the other four all vomited blood. Zhang Xuanyu roared. He was fine in the imperial palace, but he died outside. He couldn't accept this. This time, the opportunity was quite abundant. He felt that he could try to transcend the tribulation and become a king when he went back. How would he die here? Zhang Xuanyu crushed a jade slip with a flip of his hand. Hey, so what if you're a king? If you can't kill me today, I will open the sky tomorrow and chase after you every day. Mushui Sisi also threw out a talisman and a bronze bell, which transformed in the air, trying to buy time for them. However, the jade slip that Zhang Xuanyu threw out was not a full-strength blow. Instead, it was a treasure called Thousand Lightning Flash, which was obtained in the imperial palace. Boom, 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 in an instant, thousands of lightning bolts flashed across the sky. Zhang Xuanyu thought that he could at least block this king for a few seconds. But the other party was completely unharmed and still galloped in the lightning. Mushui Sisi's bronze bell was crushed by Pang Jia's fist. Puff, 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 the five of them vomited blood again, and their bodies were covered with cracks. But how long had it been? It had only been less than 5 seconds since they came out. Although they had used various means to delay him for a few seconds, it was still not enough. Bai Muling roared, turned into a little white dragon, spat out a milky white bead, and shouted, Pang Jia, how dare you attack me? Aren't you afraid that my father will kill you? Pang Jia thought quickly and then snorted coldly. Humph, I'm about to open the sky. Why would the mermaid royal family fight against me for you? BM, the bead burst out with a strange light and tried to resist, but Pang Jia slapped it with a backhand, and Bai Muling's body exploded. This was the result of a half-king fighting a real king. Even if he used all his trump cards, he was no match for Pang Jia at all. A bloody light flashed in Pang Jia's eyes, and he slapped down. In the blink of an eye, these so-called heavenly talents wouldn't even have a place to run. And at this moment, Zhang Xuanyu silently took out a big shield, thinking to himself, let's see if I can survive this mid-quality, sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Bam! The wind was howling and the waves were crashing. Zhang Xuanyu and the others seemed to be swaying in the waves, feeling that they were unlucky and were about to die. But then they found that something was wrong. It didn't hurt. It seemed that no attack fell. When they took a closer look, they saw that Han Fei had appeared out of nowhere and punched out a beam of light, smashing one of Pang Jia's arms into pieces. At this moment, they heard Han Fei's leisurely voice. You, surprised? Chapter 2037. Cough, cough. Zhang Xuanyu was so annoyed by Han Fei's teasing look that he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was speechless. You're already here. Why don't you attack? Han Fei shrugged. Of course not. I've just arrived. Han Fei's appearance made Pang Jia's face change drastically. He didn't want to fight Han Fei. A sea expansion realm cultivator wanted to kill him. Before Han Fei was born, Pang Jia would only be full of disdain. In terms of defense, he could withstand the attack of a heaven-opening realm cultivator, and he could rank in the top 10 of the sea expansion list. With his strength, Pang Jia wouldn't even be able to escape if the heaven-opening realm didn't come out. However, Han Fei's terrifying means terrified Pang Jia. In terms of strength, he surpassed him. In terms of physique, he surpassed him. In terms of speed, he surpassed him. In terms of soul, he also seemed to surpass him. In terms of defense, if he didn't have this shell, he would be defeated. Even with this shell, he didn't dare to underestimate Han Fei. After all, his shell couldn't resist all kinds of attacks. Besides, Han Fei was evil. He was really unlucky to meet this guy as soon as he left the imperial palace. Pang Jia immediately retreated. A few trifling demi-monarchs were just a matter of convenience to him. In fact, it didn't matter whether he could kill them or not. There was no need to fight with Han Fei now. However, Han Fei's voice echoed between heaven and earth. You hurt my brother. Do you think you can just leave? Swish! A golden light flashed, and Han Fei had already stood in front of Pang Jia. With a thought from Han Fei, the ultimate blade had already been smashed out. Clang, clang, clang. Although the ultimate blade couldn't break Pang Jia's defense, it didn't mean that he was completely unaffected. In order to block the ultimate blade, which was a low-quality divine weapon. Pang Jia had to resist it with his strongest state. Now, Pang Jia had transformed into a human form, and his back armor was limited, so he could only condense a void shield. Although it could also block the ultimate blade, it meant that he would have to give up his chance to escape. However, Pang Jia still chose to do so because he knew that with the heaven-opening realm cultivators of the 100 Demons clan here, it would be meaningless no matter how strong Han Fei was. Hum, hum, hum. Every time the ultimate blade attacked, it would form a ripple that spread to the surroundings. Zhang Xuanyu had just returned, and his expression was one of shock. Did Fei Fei make a move? How'd he do it? When everyone was looking at the battlefield, Luo Xiaobai said, I'm afraid we can't go on like this. All the great heaven-opening realm experts should be nearby. If we drag this on, it won't be good for us. Han Fei seemed to know that time was running out. If the limit blade was not enough, he could toss it out at any time. The endless water turned into a blade, and the area within 50 kilometers of Pang Jia was completely covered by the blade. Since even the ultimate blade couldn't break Pang Jia's defense, the infinity water naturally couldn't either. However, these two could deal a lot of damage. If it went on like this, Han Fei was almost certain that Pang Jia wouldn't be able to hold on for more than 10 minutes without an external source of power. But now, Han Fei didn't have 100 seconds. Even if he had 100 breaths of time, he had already sensed that there were figures passing by in the surrounding space. The various heaven-opening experts should have already noticed the situation over here, and they would arrive in a breath's time at most. And 2 of them had already arrived. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and his strength rose rapidly. Under the operation of the Great Tao, the terrifying pressure was close to that of a heaven-opening realm expert. Heaven and Earth Law. A giant more than 500 meters tall appeared out of thin air. In the center of the giant's chest, Han Fei's body was shining with golden light. Gradually, this Dharma idol also became golden. In the past 3 years, Han Fei had obtained so many resources. The Origin Sea had been developed, and he had even laid out more than 80,000 kilometers. His pure power had reached the threshold of 400,000 waves. Under the operation of the Great Tao, his power reached 1.2 million waves, and when he used the Heaven and Earth Law, his strength increased by another 30%. In terms of pure power, Han Fei might have the power of 1.56 million waves. By Muling, Jianhui, Mushui Cece, as well as Lu Rinquang and Zhang Xuanyu, were dumbfounded at this moment. They felt that the void was trembling violently, as if it would completely shatter at any time. In fact, the situation was really similar. This was the first time that Han Fei had displayed such power in the chaotic ocean. His strength hadn't reached this level before, so he naturally didn't experience it. But at this moment, Han Fei felt the void trembling. He didn't know if he could throw this punch. Pang Jia was horrified. When he felt the crisis of death coming, he directly transformed into his original body, a huge turtle with a rugged black stone shell, and his head and everything else were all retracted. The turtle shell was shaking as if it was condensing a stronger defensive force. When Han Fei was halfway through his punch, the void in front of him collapsed, directly forming a small black hole, and a terrifying suction force was sucking in from it. The old turtle said, "The spatial structure of this place is not very stable. So if you go all out, it will easily cause the void to collapse. You'd better hold back a little." Han Fei had no experience in this aspect, so he was a little surprised. He had to adjust his state and slightly hold back his strength. It wasn't until he reduced his strength by more than 20% that the collapse of the void disappeared. And at this moment, Han Fei's punch finally hit Pang Jia. Ripples surged wildly. Zhang Xuanyu and the others couldn't see the battlefield at all, and their souls couldn't perceive it at all. In fact, just the impact alone was enough to make them feel powerless. Fortunately, Xia Xiaochan was also in the Pioneer Sea realm. At this moment, she stood in front of everyone and stretched out her hand to push out a void barrier. Only then did she manage to block the terrifying aftershock. Han Fei, don't try to kill me. Sherpa Huang's voice came from afar. Xia Xiaochan suddenly shouted, Mother! Xia Xiaochan could feel the existence of Xia Hongzhu. Han Fei had been beaten like this, so Pang Jia must be killed. This killing was of great significance, almost as if he was declaring his strength. While killing Pang Jia, he was also telling the entire chaotic vast sea that Han Fei already had the power to open the sky, and whoever dared to go against him could have a try. Sure enough, Han Fei didn't stop because of Sherpa Huang's shout. Instead, he became more ferocious, and his strength poured out from his fist. Kacha! Crack! Crack! Pang Jia's void armor was penetrated layer by layer, and with a boom, it finally landed on his back. With this punch, all the defensive armor techniques of Pang Jia, except his back armor, were shattered, and his figure was instantly blasted thousands of miles away. But Han Fei was even faster. When he got the ultimate blade, he also got the ultimate speed. Although it was still far from the limit, he could cover the distance of thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Those below the Challenger realm couldn't see the battle clearly anymore. Even Xia Xiaochan could barely keep up. Bang, bang, bang. In less than half a second after Sherpa Huang arrived, Han Fei hammered 23 times in a row from multiple directions. From multiple directions, Han Fei hammered 23 times in a row. Pang Jia's flesh and blood were all broken, and its shell was covered with cracks. Just as Sherpa Huang's hand was about to smash down, a golden trident pierced through the void and instantly pierced Sherpa Huang's body, causing him to explode. Xia Hongzhu's eyes were cold. Either retreat or die. Sherpa Huang was horrified. He looked at this person from a distance. He saw Chen Huangdian and Li Qingdi. And these two people were just standing on the woman's left and right. He couldn't help but be shocked. Is this the legendary one? Sherpa Huang was frightened by this blow. At this time, Xia Hongzhu finally showed up and looked into the distance. Over there, He Daoyuan, Bei Luochun, and Xian Xingzi were also looking in this direction. Not far away, on the side of the Martial Emperor's city, the Martial Emperor appeared on the bow of the ship, watching this scene quietly. In the battlefield, Pang Jia didn't expect that Sherpa Huang would be blocked. He couldn't help but shout, "Emperor, help me. I'm not far from the sky." Hearing this, Sherpa Huang's aura fluctuated. Pang Jia was very likely to open the sky. If he could come out of the Imperial Palace safely, he must have gained a lot. Just look at Han Fei. How could Han Fei unleash such a terrifying power before? Sherpa Huang shouted, "Kong Shun, He Daoyuan, Bei Luochun, Xian Xingzi. You've seen Han Fei's growth. Today he can kill Pang Jia." Xian Xingzi, how long do you think it will take him to kill you? War Queen, I don't mean to offend you, but it's obvious that he wants to kill us. Please forgive me. Xian Xingzi's face darkened. Sherpa Huang's question was only because he had just opened the sky and was the weakest. However, it was also a reminder to Han Fei that he could attack him first in the future. Li Qingdi said leisurely, "Sherpa Huang, you should know that you can't succeed today." On Kong Shin's side, Chen Huangdian held his head high and said disdainfully, "Kong Shun, do you want to join the battle?" On the other side, He Daoyuan, Bei Luochun, and Xian Xingzi, who didn't want to join the battle. However, Sherpa Huang didn't know what the situation was right now. Pang Jia was going to open the sky, and you were anxious? Sure enough, before the three of them moved, the sword god had already slashed the void and smiled gently. After all, Han Fei is an ally of the heavenly sword heaven. Tai Yuan said, "Don't look at me. I won't join the battle, but I think Han Fei may be the reincarnation of a human king. I suggest you don't." Bei Luochun and the others were infuriated. "What do you mean you don't? After Han Fei really opens the sky when he attacks us, you'll also tell Han Fei that you don't join the battle?" While everyone was hesitating, Han Fei seemed to burst out with power, and the image giant broke a layer of shell. "Oh!" Han Fei clasped the shell with his big hands and roared. His power shook the void and made the void ripple. "Kacha! Chilla, BM, Pang Jia's huge tortoise shell was torn apart by Han Fei's hands. As Han Fei pointed with his two fingers, The Tao convergence, sword swept past Pang Jia, who was already unable to resist. Rumble, a crack appeared. Blood rained. Han Fei roared. Who else is in the Pioneer Sea realm?